You're listening to the Miracles in Meat podcast. I'm Shane Thibodaux, a fourth-generation butcher at one of the oldest meat markets in the world. My great-grandfather started this business by slaughtering one cow or pig at a time and selling the cuts door-to-door on horse and buggy. Today, our products are enjoyed across the globe. I will attempt to give you some insight as to how we got here and explore the challenges we've had along the way. At Bourgeois, our mission is to preserve our heritage generation after generation through legendary Cajun flavors and the development of relationships, not customers. Since 1891, Bourgeois has maintained age-old culinary traditions that fuel the South Louisiana lifestyle. Over the past 133 years, our Cajun products have gained global recognition, and for tens of thousands of folks around the world, the Bourgeois Cajun Lady logo is a symbol of home. Today, the fourth-generation butchers sit at the 9-foot maple block with loyal customers to discuss the adventures, skills, and passions that guide each of their legacies. These conversations will become priceless resources for future generations of any industry. This is our way of maintaining the spirit, purpose, and traditions of our lost arts in a world of change. 133 years, 4 generations. We're just getting started. All right, this is episode number 4. I have Scotty Smith, who is the owner of Next Generation Martial Arts in Thibodaux. Scotty's kids jiu-jitsu program is absolutely impressive. If you ever get to stop by on an afternoon and go watch that class and what happens in there and how he can keep, 50, 60 kids entertained and engaged, it's unbelievable to watch. It really is. It's awesome. It's really cool. And, it's a lot deeper than it looks from an outsider's perspective. I know Scotty very well, and I know I can see behind the things he's doing and the things he's saying in that class. And if everyone knew what was going on in his head, I think it'd be a little more special to him, like it is to me. My kids have been training with Scotty for a while now, and while they're young, this is something that my wife and I decided, but while they're young and we're making the decisions for them and we know what's best for them, jiu-jitsu is going to be a non-negotiable. It's, they can still do sports and other things on the side, but that isn't going to replace what they're going to learn from jiu-jitsu outside of it being, self-defense and a martial art. Talking about the life skills. Scotty's vision for these kids and for the future of our youth goes far beyond sports and hobbies and extracurriculars. He's approaching martial arts as a life skill that these kids can use to accomplish anything, now or later in life. For us, we understand these benefits, and it's no different than sending them to school. That's how we're viewing it. It's you need to learn how to swim, right? It's the same thing. Scotty can, he's a little different than maybe some of these other gym owners. He can care less about how well a child might place in a tournament or if they can do a fancy submission. He's really focusing on fundamentals such as respect and courage and confidence and, verbal communication skills, leadership, humility, all these things that we need. And there's no doubt in my mind that the kids who are running through his class will be prepared for anything. Any challenge that's thrown to them now and when they're 30, they're going to be able to pull tools that they learned from Scotty's class. And I don't think it'd be fair to talk about our education system or even like youth leadership in our city or parish without mentioning Scotty. So here we go. Let's see what we can get into. Miracles in Meat podcast. I'm Shane, and I have my cousin, Beau Bourgeois, the owner of Bourgeois Meat Market. Beau, say hi so everyone knows your voice.
Hey, guys.
That's Beau. And then we have with us Scotty Smith. Scotty Smith, say hi. You just trying to sound scary?
Am I trying to sound scary?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What did you get yourself into?
Oh, dude. No, I have no idea why my voice sounds like this.
Well, all right, that's Scotty. And Scotty is a 2nd degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Beau and I have been training Jiu-Jitsu for quite some time under Scotty. And Beau's actually the one who's gotten me started in jiu-jitsu. several years ago. But Beau started when?
I was a sophomore in high school, like 2002 or 3.
And Scotty started when?
'07.
And
So it was like June. Yeah, July of '07. So right around 17 years.
So, and then I met Scotty around 2016-ish through Beau. We started training in back of there was a classroom behind Hoffman's in Thibodaux, and Scotty was renting out some classroom space, and he had some mats down. And Beau was just picking it back up. He'd maybe take some time off. You were coming back from Tulane, right?
Yeah, like 6 years off.
Yeah. So Beau had taken a long time off and then getting back into it and begged me to go train with him and prove to me why I needed to train with him. At the time, I just come out of the Marine Corps, and I was like 210, and I was powerlifting, and I was my strongest ever, and I just thought I was awesome. But Beau could just do, and I also had some a lot of time spent grappling in the Marines, and I really thought I was something until Beau wanted to do some drills with me at the gym and had me try to hold him down on the mat, or he held me down and would have me try to get up, get to my feet or something like that. And he just wrecked me, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how him being weaker than me could do the things he was doing and could hold me down and submit me whenever he wanted and do anything. My strength didn't matter. So that confused the crap out of me. And I took the bait and went to first few classes with Scotty. Beau, when did you meet Scotty?
Originally, I met Scotty when he first started training in probably '07 or '08. I was at Nichols at the time. We were training in Bayou Blue, and I used a fresh white belt, but I was a blue belt at the time, and he was already pretty good, and so that was aggravating. But then I don't think he even remembers me, but I didn't see him again until late 2015 when I started training again in Homa at Evolution. It was Waffle's place, but I think Scotty was teaching, and he was a brown belt I think he got his black belt like within 6 months of me coming back or something like that. But yeah, then why did you open a school in Thibodaux? For some reason, I want to say it was Jonah's fault. Is that true?
Partially. So I remember opening a school. Well, I got to step back. I can't say I remember opening before I tell why. So I remember as a blue belt. So when I decided to stop fighting, I just had the dumb idea that I'd be able to open a business with no clue and no idea of how to do it. And I started looking. I said, well, where are there no jiu-jitsu schools around? And I wanted it to be close enough to where I lived so that I can actually drive somewhere, but somewhere that, I thought couldn't be a good spot to open. And so I just started looking at the map, and I'm like, well, Thibodaux's 30 minutes from where Waffle's at. It shouldn't conflict with any student base there, and Blacklist was in Homa. So, it made sense to go about a half hour away. And that was the initial reason. Like, I didn't know anybody in Thibodaux, didn't know a thing about the city. And I just knew there was Thibodaux if I went that way.
Because it's so far away from
home.
But you knew the people there would be a little better.
I didn't know anything about the people. You got to remember, look, I was a blue belt at the time, right? And so you're talking about 08, 09 when I started thinking this. Like, again, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't really know anything about the people there, but I thought it was kind of the same. And then Jonah started training somewhere. I think Jonah started training right at the tail end of my blue belt, like maybe a few weeks before I got purple. So this was like maybe 2011.
So real quick, before we go too far into jiu-jitsu, remember that most people that are going to listen to this, they don't understand what jiu-jitsu is yet, and we'll get to that. But they also don't have any of the terminology that we use, and they don't know what a blue belt is. So quickly explain the belt system when we say blue belt or brown belt or whatever.
So for the adult rankings, you start as a white belt, like any martial art, and then the next progression is blue, then purple, then brown, then black. The kids has a whole nother belt structure, but that that's like a bunch of belts. It's not worth talking about.
And you sign up, you get your white belt, and then roughly how many years to black belt?
Like 8.5, somewhere around there.
That'll kind of help. And that's training how often?
I was training, I was training, teaching, competing, fighting. So I was on the mats at least 5 to 6 days a week during that 8 years. On average, I would say, yeah, probably average of 5, teaching multiple times a day.
So
throughout that time.
I think people don't understand that when they just hear whatever, my uncle is a black belt or my uncle is whatever. They probably don't think about that when it comes to jiu-jitsu, which we'll get back to jiu-jitsu. But let's talk about your first time in the meat market. When was that? And what do you remember about it?
So I remember being a kid, and it was actually my dad. It's one of the memories I do have as a kid with him. I don't remember my age, but I remember him talking about the jerky. And we drove all the way to Thibodaux from Houma to come buy some jerky. And I do remember walking in, seeing the market, because it's the old market, just seeing it does look pretty much exactly the same as I remember it as a kid. But yeah, it was to buy some beef jerky when, I don't know, 8, 9, maybe 10 years old, somewhere around there. Yeah. I don't remember anything else outside of that. And I'm trying to remember if we never really made it a frequent stop, but it was like a special stop. It's like if we were going to get jerky and he drove to Thibodaux to go get it, it was an hour commute, total to go get jerky. So that is something I do remember as a kid. And yeah, he would do that periodically, not very often, but yeah.
Nice. So what do you get these days?
Well, I don't get a whole lot of stuff anymore because I try to send my wife to go pick everything up. But I will stop if I'm passing. So a lot of times I'll catch, like anytime I go to get a haircut, right? I still go back to home to get my haircut with Neil Dubois it's called Royal Cuts. So I stop and I grab a boudin burrito every time I pass, and I try to get in and out and just pass, grab it, give me a water, and drive to my haircut.
Yeah,
So
but hold up,
stop.
you still borrowing that smoking pit pretty regular.
Yeah, probably need to start doing it more. But yeah, so I'll smoke some pork butts, and we get the meat to do that, and that's kind of like a special thing now. Like people start asking, like, okay, can you make some pork butts for whatever, right? So like whether it's smoking something for, I don't know, an individual that wants it for a party, or like Blacklist with Derek Bro, he started really running pretty good tournament as a cancer benefit for their charity, and we do smoke for that annually. So like I know y'all sponsor the event, and we kind of do the same. So we borrow them.
That's the
smoke
Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors of Hope. Yep.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's a real good local charity, and they keep the money pretty local, and they help out a lot of people. So they actually go to the place and they pay the medical bills for the individual instead of sending it off to some insurance or whatever. So it's a pretty neat thing they have going with that.
And what makes a good pork butt?
Time.
I
think what I've figured out so far, and that's up for people to figure out if they think it's good or not, but what I like is just smoking it with post oak wood, and you just got to manage a fire and getting good airflow on the meat. That's what I like about the smoker that you guys have. It's a good smoker, and it's easy to run. Like it's way easier than the one that I have at my house, because the firebox is bigger, and I think you can hold heat better because it's an actual smoker. It's not just a job that you picked up at academy like I have at the house. But yeah, it definitely cooks real well.
What's wrong with the pellet smokers and stuff? Why not just get a pellet smoker, throw a pork butt on, and go inside, watch some fights?
So this is something I've been thinking about, right? I've been thinking about getting one just because I want to be lazy sometimes and still have smoked meat. But the reality is, it's just not as good. It's not, and it can't be. So like what a lot of people I don't think realize about burning actual wood is there's sugars in the wood, and you have moisture content and all that. You're not getting any of that stuff in the pellet. So the pellets, if you're using a pellet grill and you're calling it barbecue, you got a smoky oven. You're not really burning wood. That's the way I look at it. And that's why none of those big places you go to in Texas, that when you think you have good barbecue somewhere, and then you go to Central Texas and you eat at the well-known places in that area, and you bite the food and you just can't understand how it tastes so good with so little ingredients. It's all because of the way that they smoke it with the wood. It's a totally different thing, and they'll tell you the same. You're not going to get that out of a pellet smoker. You might be able to get something that tastes decent, and if you don't have the time to like sit by a fire and watch it and shovel coals and build a good fire and check the wood to make sure it's heavy enough at certain points, like you can get by with a pellet smoker, and you might be able to impress somebody that's not eating a whole lot of barbecue, but anyone that kind of knows what it's supposed to taste like and what it can taste like, they'll sniff it out in a heartbeat. It's just not the same. It's not the same. And that's one thing that I do love that you guys still do over here is y'all haven't given into any pellet smokers or any commercial smokers when it comes down to your jerky. And I think that's why y'all sell it all over the world. And a lot of times that gets missed. It's way easier to do it the other way. But, it's kind of like I tell the kids, like, if it's too easy and it doesn't have any value, it's not worth it. If it's hard, it's probably worth doing.
That's good stuff. That'd have been my argument too. You go to Aaron Franklin's and Terry Black's and all that. I'm sure if they could get a good product out of a pellet smokers, they wouldn't be up all night smoking.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like Terry Black's, and I try to tell this to anybody that's interested in barbecue. Like, if you go to Terry Black's, what I do know about going there is they're cool, and you can go in the back, and they're happy to show you around the smokers, and you get to go look at those big old, 1,000-gallon smokers that they run. They got 3 of them in Austin, and the fireboxes are 30 inches around, and they're deep, they're big. And they have so much wood stacked up on that back fence. And they go through the whole width of the fence in like a week. Like, it's a stupid amount of wood. But, I mean, they're running the smokers like daily, all day. Like, they're constantly running the smokers. And I think they work everybody in 3 shifts, 3 8-hour shifts. And they have to cycle them in and rotate them just to be able to keep up with the demand of that place. Because, I mean, dude, they're doing, probably 300 briskets a day, plus the sausage and whatever else they're doing. That's a ridiculous amount of meat. And they would not have that flavor with a pellet smoker. And it's funny, like even like Joe Rogan, right? So you'll hear Joe Rogan a while back, a few years ago, he was really big on the Traegers. And when he moved to Austin, he went to Terry Black's. And you can look on like his Instagram feed and he'll start saying stuff about Terry Black's. And now I think he's doing the same thing, like burning his own wood. And I'm not saying he wouldn't use the Traeger or anything anymore, but he notices the difference because there's an enormous difference. It's not the same thing.
And it's the tinkering that's involved too. Mm-hmm. For people who like to get into what they're doing, building a fire is cool. Like, you can't deny that it's cool to just sit there and watch it and make a decision on what you want to happen next, and then you have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And you can fail. Yep. And you can waste time, and you can not impress people with your crappy pork butt if it comes out wrong.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I love that tinkering aspect. What about that place in Luling you talked about?
Oh, Gonzo's.
Gonzo's
is good, man. He's as good as you're gonna get around here. I don't think there's anybody better as far as pure barbecue, like smoked pork butts and brisket. For sure, brisket. I think pork butt, you probably have a few different things that people do around that are equivalent. But as far as briskets, like beef, the way he does the beef is pretty much on par with a place like Terry Black's. He's really good though. But sometimes, man, like a couple times I've went, it's been like hit or miss. So I don't know if it was maybe the cut of meat that day or maybe he was running behind. But generally, he's very, very good. But it's just hard to get out there, man. Like he's only serving food 1 day a week. As far as barbecue, I think he serves like burgers or tacos or something like that on Thursday. But Friday is his barbecue day. And man, he's good, dude. And it's just tough to get there.
You need to make plans to go out there on a Friday.
Let's do it.
Oh, dude. Go there and like get like some of the boudin that he makes is really something I think y'all be really interested in trying because he does like brisket boudin.
He makes it himself?
Yeah, so he smokes the brisket. And I think what he doesn't sell, like if he doesn't sell out of some, or maybe he cuts some and puts it on the side, but he puts it in his boudin. And that's probably one of my favorite things over there is his
Sounds cool.
The brisket boudin, some of the stuff he does with the boudin. He's got kind of a Mexican flair to some of the stuff. And yeah, it's just good. What else did he do that's really, really good? So he's got a good pork butt. His briskets are always good. Some of the stuff that he does every once in a while, I may not be the biggest fan of, but it's just because some of the flavors aren't like what I want. I'm not a big sauce person, but in general, man, he's really, really solid.
Brisket's the thing, because like I'm no pit master, but I can make a butt or some spare ribs come out pretty good. But man, a brisket or short ribs or something, that stuff is hard.
Yeah, dude. So I haven't done any beef in a long time. It's been a while since I've done some beef. Actually, the last time I did beef, I screwed it up. So I had the smoker, and I was doing. It might have been the last time I did the ones for Derek for the charity event. I think I did 5 butts. I think I did 5 butts that day. And then I had a brisket. And I made a stupid mistake, and I put the brisket too close to the firebox thinking it was still going to be okay. And I charred all the bottom of the brisket. Everything else came out great, but that brisket was, dude, I should have not done that. Like I really messed that piece of meat up. But yeah, I've been practicing with pork butts to try to do a brisket well. Brisket's tough.
So your son, Ty,
yep,
and also your sister, Kristen, both work for us at the Thibodaux location. What's that like? Ty's got his first job. He lives at home, but he also kind of lives on his own, right?
Yeah.
What's that like? What's that like right now as part of your parenting journey?
So with him, he's a pretty independent individual as far as like, I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to worry about him being like, he's going to do some dumb stuff because he's 18, but he's not going to do anything idiotic for the most part. I guess I shouldn't say that depending on what we're talking about. But I guess what I mean is like, I don't have to worry about him going out and getting on drugs or anything like that. So part of what I wanted to be able to do is get him around like good mentors and good people in his workplace, because I remember how bad it was for me when I was that age. So when I was 18, I worked at Gulf Island, and you have no idea what you're getting yourself into when you're working with people from all over, right? People that are just trying to get a job. And so I remember some of the characters that I had to be around in that line of work. And let's just say it's probably not the best place to start trying to get influences from people or having people influence you, where every single time you turn around, somebody's screaming at you or hollering at you or cussing you out. It doesn't really build good character. I think it builds a lot of negative character. So when y'all agreed to let him work, it was at least a burden off of my back to say, like, okay, I know he's around a bunch of other good men, and they'll be able to shoot him straight and, you know, make sure he stays in line with some stuff, you know. So that was a big part of me wanting him to be able to work with y'all, just to kind of give him some guidance and mentorship in life, just about being a man. Because, you know, like we all know, like your dad can tell you sometimes, and you're not necessarily going to listen to it just because it's your dad. And I think that's helped a lot with actually he and I, for him being able to take criticism and not get too angry, because he hears the similar type of message on a regular basis constantly with being around the market. Mm-hmm. So I think just being around good people. I mean, you have a really, really good group of guys that stick together over there. And I think that's all just, you know, probably a part of what your family has done over the past 100-something years with the market, you know. I think it's pretty awesome. So,
Scotty, you're a good dad. I see you with your kids and you know, with all the kids that you teach every day at jiu-jitsu. But yeah, what was your childhood like? You told us about your first job, but tell us more.
Yeah. So as a kid, see, that's a tough one because there's going to be a whole bunch of different parts. So growing up, parents were divorced when I was pretty young. I was maybe 4 or 5 when the divorce started. I don't remember the exact time frame. I know by the time I was 6, so everything was done. I remember real early on as a kid kind of having misunderstandings about what certain things are supposed to look like as far as relationships or how to act. So I grew up to be a pretty rebellious, angry, wild-ish sort of kid. And that didn't stop until, man, what age? I was probably about 17 before I started really thinking about, okay, what life is supposed to look like. And I remember at that age, all I knew is I wanted a family, right? So from the time I was very young, very misguided, I had a stepdad. He tried his best, but, just nothing really got through. And yeah, it took me a long time to figure out what I really wanted to do with myself. And even once I thought I had it, I didn't really know. So childhood was a mixture of a lot of anger, bad emotions, very misguided from certain parts of the family, attempts to be guided in the right direction from other sides, and not knowing what's right and wrong for certain things, and being dumb, doing stupid stuff. Never really got in any crazy amount of trouble, but I hung around a lot of kids that did end up getting in a lot of trouble. A couple of my good friends ended up dying early in their 30s from heroin overdoses, guys I grew up with, like some of my best friends actually. So grew up around a bunch of kids like that everybody was just misguided and not necessarily bad-hearted people, just didn't have the right guidance. And I never really fell that deep into that world, but I guess I was just lucky enough not to be around the whole wrong group of people. And so got to be around 17, met my future wife, and wanted to try to have a family. And that's what led me to end up getting a job at Gulf Island, all that other stuff, right? So dropped out of high school right when I could, as soon as I could, just because I hated school. Just bad school system. Ellender High School is not necessarily known for academia. I think it is what it is, man. Wasn't in a high school that pushed me, like you could sleep and make it through a class. It's like, it's not necessarily a good education. But yeah, it took me quitting high school and then having to go to work and really start trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up finding my way into martial arts, honestly.
So that was going to be my question was, what redirected you and got you back onto the right path? But I guess you're telling me it was Naomi.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, at 17 is probably when I started being an idiot. So
let's hear more.
Yeah, I was an idiot from like 17 to 25.
Just roaming the streets of Thibodaux.
Yeah, just chasing ducks, getting yelled at by cops.
Yeah.
But okay, so when did you get started in martial arts?
So I have a younger brother, and he started taking karate classes at Homa Martial Arts, I think it was called. Homa, Homa, Homa Oriental Martial Arts. It was
that on West Park?
Yeah, the blue building on the by side.
Yeah.
So he started going over there, and the guy that had that school was named George Claymore, right? And George was a Tang Soo Do guy, so it was like Korean karate is basically what it is. And my brother started going there, which probably was largely due to me because I would just beat on him all the time. Like, I don't know what else, but I'm gonna make him tough, so I'd like just beat him up. I used to be a mean to that kid, man. But I just knew that he needed to be tough, and that's the only way I knew how to do it. So every time I got in trouble, I got spanked or hit with something or whatever it was. And so it's like, okay, well, that'll make him tough. And I remember one day he started doing this karate class, and I thought it was kind of stupid. And he's a couple of years younger than me. He's like 3 years younger than me. And he came back one day and he wanted to spar. So we're playing around in the bedroom. And I remember thinking, I'm like, he's getting better, right? And so I said, you know what? If he's getting better, I'm gonna go too. So partially because I didn't
let your little brother.
Yeah, I couldn't let him beat me, right? Because I still needed to be his big brother. But at the same time, I also realized that it'd be good to learn that. Like if he's learning it, then it probably wouldn't be bad for me to learn it. Well, did that for a couple of years, and
how old were you?
I was 18.
Okay,
and did that for a couple of years. And during that time frame, I met a guy that I got to be really close with. His name's Cody Horn. He actually moved. He was in Baton Rouge for a while. Started doing a lot of real estate stuff, and he's moved to Texas. I want to say he's around College Station now, but he was one of the main guys that I would train with, and we would get together on the weekends, and we would, spar with each other, and he was a lifeguard at the YMCA, and he started doing this thing called jiu-jitsu at the YMCA. And I had no idea what it was. And he shows up, he points out a couple things and teaches me like a triangle choke, right? Now, he didn't know what he was doing, but he just knew that one move. And I thought it was cool. And, a little while later, we start grappling a little bit more often, and we would like go in somebody's house and grapple in their stupid bedroom, right? So like we're grappling like this desk right here. So I'd be buried under the desk and rolling with a guy and like smashed into a corner. Like he's basically just fighting in the rooms, like just all out fighting.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of what got me started into jiu-jitsu before I actually started training jiu-jitsu, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, I even remember going as far back. I don't remember if he was at the YMCA before he was across from Terrebonne. Which one was first? Do you remember?
Across from Terrebonne was first.
So I walked into that facility. I say facility, it was like a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
It's it looked like it was like an old mechanic shop or something like that. And I remember going in there before the Y then, where I walked in, I watched the class, and I sat down for like an hour and a half, 2 hours watching this whole class. I didn't get on the mat because I didn't know what to expect. And I'm watching the dudes, and they just broke close guard for the whole time. Like that's all they did all night. And I remember thinking, definitely not going to do that. So I didn't go back.
For those of you that don't know what it looks like, yeah, it doesn't look very fun.
No, it was like the most boring thing ever. And so it was after that where Cody actually started showing me stuff. So I had to backtrack a little bit. But that's when he showed me a move, and we started grappling around. And eventually I ended up deciding to take it a little bit more serious. And Cody's actually a big proponent of me even teaching because, well, Cody decided he was going to take a fight. And this fight was in Galliano, I believe. It was down the bayou somewhere. And he fought a guy named Justin Martinez. Justin actually still around. He lives in Thibodaux now. And he's like, hey, you want to corner me for this fight? I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll go. So takes a fight on one of Justin's shows. And La Rose, might have been like the La Rose Civic Center, Galliano, La Rose, somewhere around there. And he fights Justin. He comes out in the first round. And I thought it was interesting because Cody was like, like the best dude at the karate school. And he never once hit the dude on the feet. Like, not once. Okay. So he's got all these years of karate under his belt, and none of it mattered. Like, none of it mattered. And so Justin just grew up fighting. Justin came from down the bayou, just all the time fighting. And he wore Cody out in the first round. When I tell you he beat the snot out of Cody. Like, till this day, I still think Gabe Barahona could have stopped the fight. Like, and I would have never complained because Cody was out on his feet. He makes it through the first round, and he comes out for the second round, and Justin got tired. And so the round started back on the feet. Cody ends up getting taken down again. Couldn't keep it on his feet where he thought he wanted to be anyway. He's getting beat up. Justin gets tired. Cody does a sit-over sweep, mounts him, and then punches him, and the ref called it. Like, he hits him a few times, kind of puts him away. And it was a cardio thing as why Cody won. But I remember thinking, like, man, that's kind of crazy. Like, Cody's only been doing jiu-jitsu for maybe 5 or 6 months. And I don't even think he was going all the time. I think he would do it like once a week. And that's what saved him in a fight. So I remember thinking I was pretty odd, okay? And the other thing with Cody was that was the first time he had ever gotten into a fight ever. Like, he never got into a fight as a kid. So this first time actually getting in with somebody actually really trying to hurt him was in front of a crowd in a cage. And when we left that night, I told Naomi, I said, I could have did better than that. And she's like, how do you know? You've never done that before.
Everybody at that place left and thought the same thing.
Yeah. So I told her that. And when she told me that, she didn't realize that she challenged me to prove my point that I could do it. And I remember thinking, well, I guess that means I got to go learn some of that jiu-jitsu stuff. So I was literally the guy that when I walked in, I was trying to make a decision on whether I was going to drive all the way to the Rose to go to Blacklist, or if I was going to drive to Bayou Blue to go with Toro. And I said, man, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to, pay for fuel to go to La Rose a few times a week, right? Because I was so broke at the time. So when I started like trying to do some math to figure out how many miles I could drive to go to La Rose or Bayou Blue, the only option to train was to go to Bio Blue. So I walk in and talk to Toro, Tori Bienvenu. He was the guy that kind of, I think he's the one that mainly brought jiu-jitsu to the area, to the Houma, Thibodaux area. And I told him, I said, hey, I want to start learning jiu-jitsu. He's like, well, why? I said, because I want to fight in a cage. And now it's funny because like you hear so many of those stories and guys don't stay. And I did a jiu-jitsu tournament about 7 months in, and I took a fight 9 months in. And that's pretty much how this whole thing started, was because my wife didn't think I could win a fight.
And Bo, you started with Toro as well.
Yeah, so they had just moved. So, all right, real quick. You remember James that used to work here way back when?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm in high school. I'm working, I don't know, over the summer or Christmas or whatever. I'm stuck in the vacuum packing room with this guy, James, who's one of these guys that like knows a little bit about everything. And I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a martial art. Which one should I do? And he kind of gives me a rundown of all the martial arts because that's just something that he knows.
He knew all of them.
And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu sounded cool because it has the word submission in it. And I like the idea of making somebody else quit. And so what you had to do back in those days was you open the phone book and go to the yellow pages and you look up martial arts or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I called the number. The address was for the place across from Terrebonne. But when I called him, I was like, all right, so I'm meet out. Yeah, there's class on Tuesday and Thursday nights. I'll meet you at across from Terrebonne. He's like, no, we just started at the Y. So meet me at the Y. So yeah, that's how I started.
Jeez.
But were y'all in the same room together back then?
That's the thing. Like, I don't really remember too much. See, he remembers me, but I don't really remember a whole lot of the guys there. Now, I remember hearing Bo. I remember hearing the name, but I don't remember a ton from like then. And I don't know why, to be quite honest. The only thing I remember was Dr. Stiegler, and I remember Alvin. So I remember Alvin, Stiegler, James Morgan, and Toro. Those are pretty much the people I remember.
You remember both Scotts, don't you?
Yeah, Scott Porter, Scott Pritchard.
Yeah.
But I remember Stiegler because he was always the one that just, if you rolled with him, he was probably going to get you. Like, I got my eye almost scratched out by him when he was drilling an armbar.
Absolutely.
And it was my fault, apparently.
So he's the only person that could hurt you and then get mad at you for it.
Yeah, he could hurt you and then say, this is why I don't like drilling with white belts.
It made me mad. See what you did? All right, so what exactly is jiu-jitsu?
Oh, man.
What is jiu-jitsu? What does Brazilian jiu-jitsu mean? Without getting into the history, just what is it? There's a lot of people that have been hearing it this whole episode and they don't know what it is.
So jiu-jitsu is Japanese, right? So this is one thing that I think needs to be, it's not Brazilian. So the jiu-jitsu is not a Brazilian word. The words jiu-jitsu, they translate to the art or set of techniques that flow or go with. So that's what like the meaning of jiu-jitsu is. The actual words. If you look up Jiu and Jitsu, that's what it's going to tell you. So Jiu is to flow or go with, and Jitsu is the art or set of techniques. Art or set of techniques. So from a fighting standpoint, I guess that's what it is. Most people recognize it because they watch the UFC and they see people say that, oh, he has such good jiu-jitsu, and they see the grappling on the ground. But I don't think jiu-jitsu is really about the fighting. Like, for me, it's about the individual. It's a way for people to improve themselves, and they're drawn to it because of the fighting nature of it. I think jiu-jitsu is more than just a martial art or a fighting art. Yeah, it's more than a fighting art. I think martial arts are mainly a way to help people develop themselves into better people. So that can end up being a whole nother topic in its own self, like
Right.
talking about that. But it's a grappling art that's based around chokes, joint locks, and get into positions that allow you to do those things. That's what most people would recognize it as.
That's good. Can we do a little sidebar right here? Shane, what do you like about jiu-jitsu? Why do you go every time?
Man, there certainly is addiction, right? Addiction exists. And some people are more prone than others to be addicted to things. I have an addictive personality, and the layers and layers and layers of jiu-jitsu keep unpeeling for me because I keep digging into it. I'm the type that is going to keep digging into it. I'm not just going to show up, whatever it is, 3 times a week, train, and then it's off my mind. With almost all the little shenanigans I get into, I get way too into it, and that's absolutely happened with jiu-jitsu. And the more I learn, the more unfolds, and then the more I'm interested in it. And I'm sure it's the same for you because you have actually led me down a lot of the rabbit holes. I'll find whatever, maybe a technique or a guy or a piece of history or a video I watch, and I'll mention it to you. Be like, hey, you need you to check this out. Check out this guy I've been watching, and you'll be like, oh yeah, him, yep. And then you'll spit off a few facts about him, where he trained, who trained him, and then you'll say, if you like him, why don't you check out this other guy? And then there's the next 3 months, just digging and digging and digging.
Yeah, it's an endless rabbit hole for sure. But like, that's the problem for you though. Like you're just good at everything you do. So like everything you end up doing, you go down a deep rabbit hole and you get really, really good at it. Like that's just seems to be the case with Shane.
It's, to me, here's how I can answer your question. It's, for me, I love to learn. I really like to learn. I did not like to learn in school. Wasn't very good at that. Didn't care about the learning process, but I guess that's what it is for me. It's taught me throughout any endeavor that I choose how to learn the endeavor, whatever the skill is. If I treat it the same way that I treat jiu-jitsu, I get good at it. I know I will.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be the best at it, but I'm going to know how to find the guys who are the best, and I'm going to know to study those guys. You know, I know, and I understand the levels of skill involved in anything. So, you know, when you start to feel like you're good at something, jiu-jitsu teaches me that, hey, there's guys down the street who used to do this 30 years ago who don't anymore. And you're just like, you're just coming into it.
Yeah.
And you got to realize that those other guys are out there, and they have a lot to offer. And if you kind of tune that out and you get too caught up into this, I think you miss a lot of the benefits of it. You know, for me, any skill that I attempt.
Nice.
That's a good point.
So Scotty, you started doing jiu-jitsu so that you could be a cage fighter. And
no, I started because my wife said I couldn't.
Fair enough.
She's going to listen to this, so I think.
Thanks, Naomi.
At the time, you were probably cross-training with maybe some Chinese kickboxing, some Tang Sudo, some boxing. Who knows? The point is, what is it about jiu-jitsu that you decided to stick with? Yeah, why aren't you a Muay Thai black belt?
I don't know.
Or whatever.
You know, so I think that, so like, this is the first thing outside of my marriage that I've stayed doing for a long period of time. It's the only thing that's kept me interested for this long. So like, I tried a whole bunch of stuff as a kid, you know, got decent at some things, but never really had the want or desire to pursue something for a long, long period of time. Like even when I did karate for a while, it was good crap. Even when I did karate for a while, it was like a couple years. And
wait, let's stop. That was Beau's neck. Yeah. I hope that sound comes through
for anyone listening.
But
don't do jiu-jitsu.
No. Don't relate that to jiu-jitsu.
I thought that was like a chiropractor thing. I thought you did that on purpose.
You need to go see Carrie, man. All right, sorry.
So did karate for a while, and even I stopped that because I just kind of got bored with it, you know. Jiu-jitsu, yeah, I don't know. Something different about it. There's just a different way to challenge myself. And I don't know. I still don't know why I've stayed with it as long as I have. 17 years later, and I still don't know why. Which has turned out to be a good move for me, I guess. But I think after I got my black belt, I started realizing how dumb it was for me to pursue the selfish goals of training And I think that's when I really, really wanted to start trying to teach more, because I always found more benefit or more gratification out of seeing people get better than it mattered to me about winning competitions. Because like I would go to tournaments and, you know, I'd do well or whatever, and I just didn't care. Like it didn't really make me feel as good as when I can help somebody get better. And so seeing them pursue their goals and seeing them achieve them was always more rewarding for me. So I think that's probably the thing that's gotten me, probably over the past, I don't know, 10 years. Probably about 10 years now. That's really gotten me to stay interested in it. And yeah, it's just that, you know, I was never truly worried about doing much else outside of trying to figure out how to make people better on the mat and just overall in whatever way I could help. So I think that's probably what's kept me around more so than the actual grappling itself, to be honest.
Maybe people don't realize, I mean, definitely they don't realize a lot about jiu-jitsu, but from an outsider's view, they might think that if you want to sign up for jiu-jitsu, you start in, that means you have to compete, and they're scared they don't want to compete. So explain that. Like, I know that was confusing for me when I started too. I kind of assumed, well, if you're going 4 nights a week to train at this gym with all these guys, you must be training to go to a tournament with them. Is that, just talk on that.
I mean, you can. You know, you can. I don't think it matters. I think for some personalities it's good, but it's not what everybody should do. Like, people think jiu-jitsu is a sport, right? So you'll hear people talk about the sport of jiu-jitsu, and they completely leave out the fact that it's supposed to be a martial art first. And so when you start getting into the sportive side of it, you think it's a game, right? And it can be played as a game, the same as people play basketball and football and all that stuff, right? It can be tennis, whatever game you want to figure. But jiu-jitsu is not for you to go out and compete. You can compete at it, but a lot of places teach for competition specific scenarios, right? And they want to be able to push their students out there and be able to try to market it that way so that they can try to gain a bigger student base and build a bigger academy and make more money and all that. But, you know, what they're really doing, I think a lot of times, is maybe they're doing some good for a community, or they're doing good for their students, and it's not for me to say they are or not. But I think if you push people into competing that their personality isn't right for competing, you might be doing a disservice to that person. So if you're training 3 to 5 days a week, I mean, nobody questions, hey, you're going to do a bodybuilding competition because you go work out 3 or 4 days a week. Like it's
a good analogy.
Yeah.
Like
I never
nobody ever asks that question to somebody that goes to the gym. He goes to the gym, he goes work out, he wants to stay in shape. Well, people do that with jiu-jitsu. They do that with a whole lot of stuff. You know, how many people play pickleball nowadays, and they're not going to be
pickleball.
I don't know, dude,
playing
but they're
professional pickleball.
I've been hearing that word way too much.
Like, I still want to know how they came up with the name for it.
So yeah, you don't have to compete.
No.
Then why? Then why do it?
To challenge yourself. All right. So this is the way that Waffle talked to me about it.
Who's Waffle?
Waffle was the guy that I trained with after I got out of training with Toro. Waffle basically walked in on the mat one day when I was still at Toro. It was about two months in, and I seen the way he was training with everybody, and I thought he looked a little different in his approach. And basically, I started training with him whenever he decided to start teaching, and I stayed with him for quite a long time. I still have a solid relationship with him, but I was ranked from white all the way through to black with Waffle. But one thing he told me about competing, he's a psychologist as well, and he said that competing can be good for certain individuals, but it really depends. He said, if you take somebody and it spikes their anxiety level up to a 10 to go compete, he said that same person that hits a 10 at a competition, they might get the same anxiety spike just by going to visit another academy. He said, so when they hit that anxiety level, like, there's no difference to them whether they're going to another place to go visit somewhere or a competition. He said, so going to a competition makes no sense for them. If you get somebody that, like a first day person, you would never tell a first day person or a person a weekend that they need to go do a competition, because they're still getting that same height of anxiety walking through the door of the gym. And, you know, after they do that for a year or whatever. You know, maybe they go visit somewhere else and it still does it for them. They go visit a new place, their anxiety spikes. You know, if they can go all over the country and they don't get a spike in their anxiety level and it never maxes out at a 10 and they're at like a 3, well, sure, maybe that guy needs to go do a competition to feel like there's some sort of thing at stake for him, right? But even still, like, guys compete enough and it just kind of lowers it, you know, like I don't know, everything becomes normal the more you do it. So depends on the individual. Some people, you know, if they know what it feels like to have to deal with the jitters before a match and, you know, they know how they handle that stress, then I think when people realize that, then if you know the answers to it, then why go pay $120 to compete in a tournament against people that you're going to be able to train with anytime you want? You know, like, because think about it. You go to a local tournament here in New Orleans, right? Like, let's say IBJJF comes to New Orleans. Who are you going to be competing against? You're going to compete
Blacklist.
against, yeah, you're going to be competing against all the guys within an hour radius. You're going to have a handful of people that pop in. Maybe they drive 4 or 5 hours, but you may or may not even have that person in your bracket. So it's like you're going to be training with the dude that you went visit to train with in New Orleans like 3 weeks ago, and that's the guy you're competing with. Doesn't even make sense. You know, like, you just go train with him. And so for people to think that they're doing some great thing by competing, not to crap on anybody's accomplishments, because I do think it does have value, but it's like, after we look at it enough, it kind of just doesn't make sense to compete. Like, if you know, some people need to prove to themselves that they're good enough to win. And I think when you know you are, you realize, like, it doesn't really matter. You know, like, so what? So you know you're good. Like, do you need to keep proving it to yourself? And that's another thing that I've heard from guys that are like multiple time world champions over and over and over and over again. They always end the same way. Every last one of them, they always end the same way. So you listen to any dude that's won multiple world titles in jiu-jitsu, they all say this when they're done. They all say, helping their students is far more fulfilling than winning any world title. And so they all come to that same conclusion. So, like, I don't think they wasted their years of winning competitions, but at the end says that all of those guys come up with the same answer. Then why are we worried about white belts winning tournaments or blue belts or whatever? You know, like, it's really not that important when the end goal is just to help people. And they all come to that. All of them. Every last one that I know of anyway, or that I'd be willing to listen to them or get advice from them, you know. I find that interesting.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
I've competed before. I don't particularly care for it, but at times in the past, it was something that I really wanted to do. My argument might be more along the lines of, I think everyone should try it once.
Yeah.
I don't see much value in doing it regularly, but it's such a shock to the system that most people haven't experienced, especially like even for people like Shane and I that played football on Friday nights, right, in high school, or soccer or whatever it might have been. It's different when it's different in a solo sport. And the nerves that you get competing and that adrenaline dump, especially if you've never done it before, I think there's some value in knowing how your body's going to react.
Yeah.
Especially maybe from a self-defense standpoint.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. And that's what I was meaning earlier when I said, like, once you know how you handle that stress level, then I don't think it's really that important to continue doing those type of things. So, like, yeah, I do think it is. It can be a good thing depending on the individual. So it goes back to the idea of if somebody's getting really, like, I guess the word would be physiologically, like if it triggers all those same stress hormones in an individual just to walk onto a mat, right? Like okay, this is an example. We got a girl that trains with us, and when she first started, I don't know if y'all remember, but she would sit on the side and she didn't even want to get on the mat. She was nervous to get on the mat. I think her getting on that mat, her body response the first time would have been no different than her going to a competition, right? And so after a couple years, year and a half, whatever it was, she actually did a competition. And I wanted her to do it just for her to know she could. And I didn't care about the results, you know? Like,
yeah, I don't even think winning should be considered.
I didn't even care about the results because she was so terrified to get on the mat on day one. it was like a confidence thing for her to know that she could at least walk out onto the mat in a competition setting and still go out there and do something, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it took her like a match or two. She lost both matches, but I want to say it was after her second match. I think she finally got over the nerves of it. Like midway through the second match, crap, I don't even remember which one it was, but I know at some point there was like a definite difference in her body language. And she ended up getting smashed for the first half of whatever round it was. And she ended it on top, like going after the other girl. She ends up losing on points, but something clicked in her head to like, no, I can do it.
That's beautiful.
And to see her make that move, it's like, okay, she done it once. I don't think she ever needs to do it again.
Correct.
Because I think that particular person, if she's ever attacked, she's probably going to do okay. Like, I think she's going to be able to handle herself well enough, But, the emotional stuff that she had to get over just to get on the mat in the first place, I think her getting into a competition I don't know if it was any different. So I think after guys that keep going to compete, to win, just to keep proving themselves that they can, I'm not sure what drives them or motivates them, but I don't think it's to deal with the nerves after a certain amount of time, I think they just want to see if they can keep winning, and the truth is like it's going to be a bunch of medals later on that they're probably going to put in a box and never take out, so like what's that worth? Not saying it doesn't have value, but I'm still questioning like what is it worth?
I think the value you're right is not in the medals. The value is that when push comes to shove that your heart rate's going to stay steady and you're not going to panic.
Yeah, well it's like, y'all let Ty shoot a pig, right? And so he shot the pig and you told him, you said, hey, let me see your hands. And he goes, pff. And you're like, that's pretty good. He was, I don't know, 10, whatever it was, right? I don't remember his age. He was decently young. And like, it didn't affect him. Like,
but some people don't got that.
Yeah. But
most people don't got that.
Yeah. But he also competed a lot.
Yeah.
So like, he knows how he deals with those type of moments, and he's done it enough. That's why after a certain time of him competing, I never forced him to compete. Like, if he goes and competes, it's because he wants to now. Like, I didn't tell him he needed to do this thing the other day or the other events that he's done throughout. Like, he decided he wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And I think putting him in some of that stuff earlier on helped him learn how to do it. But I don't think it's something he had to be doing when he was 8. I don't think you need to know that answer when you're 8. I think people just need to learn it eventually, because like, look, people are dangerous that think that they have a capability that they don't. And I think jiu-jitsu, like being on the mat just in general, forces you to realize like, yeah, I couldn't really do that, right? Like I couldn't really do that if I needed to. And competition can be a way of trying to make people realize it, but it's also turns into a game. So it kind of changes what people would really do in real scenarios,
So what I just heard is that we need to find all these deer hunters. They get buck fever and just throw them in a bunch of competitions. They'll steady their hand when that big buck comes out.
We could do a camp.
Yeah.
Could do a mini camp before every hunting season.
Buck fever camp.
Oh, yeah.
Limited space.
I like it.
Yeah. Just put you through like a gauntlet and get that heart rate down.
Yeah.
All right. So Beau, when'd you get your black belt?
Last year.
I think it's March 2nd.
It's up on the wall
is
right
it March
there.
2nd? What is it?
March 4th.
4th. Why am I thinking 2nd?
So yeah, I got my black belt on March 4th, and then we opened the new market on March 10th.
Man, that was cool. Yeah. So what did you used to think that meant, and what do you think it means now?
God, dude, so much. I used to think it would mean I was good.
I mean, you are good.
And it don't do that. I don't know. Honestly, I never thought about getting a black belt until I was well into my brown belt, because I don't know. I can't explain it, but I guess coming up through the ranks and all, like, Toro was a purple belt, and he was the only purple, the only guy that had any jiu-jitsu down here, and we learned from him. And then Waffle got here as a brown, soon to be black maybe, and he was like a cheat code. He was in California learning from some of the best guys in the world. So, but you got to realize I never rolled with a black belt until 2015, 16 when I started coming back. So it didn't seem like something that could happen.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot different. It's a lot different for you than me and both of y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I started, the idea of black belts around.
Yeah, you saw one every day.
Right.
So it seems doable.
Yeah.
But the guy that's been teaching me for the last 4 years is still a purple belt.
Right.
You know?
Scotty, what about your view? What does it mean? Not, let's ditch your view of what it was back then, but what is it now?
So what is being a black belt now?
What's that mean?
I don't know. I think it means a whole lot less than I think it used to.
Speak to a white belt.
Oof.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
Sorry, white belts.
Well, that's
no,
gonna be
no black belt for you.
No, it makes it difficult because it's like, okay, how do you try to explain something to somebody on day one after you've been doing it
Let's do
close
this.
to 2 decades, and the depth of the way you're gonna think about it? It's like, how do you put that into words?
Let's do it from this angle because I think this is what everyone's familiar with. People hear terms like sensei and master and grandmaster and professor, grandmaster to the sensei.
No, I can't stand it.
So when they hear black belt, where should they? What is going on? What is it? What's this whole thing?
What draws them to it?
What's black belt mean? What's being a master, a karate grandmaster? What does all of that mean?
You want to know what I think of it?
Yeah,
I think it's stupid.
Throw the belts away, guys.
No, I think, all right, so I think the idea of calling somebody master is dumb, right? That's part of the reason why I've never wanted anybody to call me sensei, master, professor. Like, I think all of it doesn't even make sense. I think it's one of those deals where it's a way to get people to try to become subordinates, to get them to bow down to you in a specific way so that you have some form of control over them and something to hold over them. Because think about this, right? Like, how many times would somebody have to call you master such and such before it's just a normal thing and it creates a view in your mind that they are over you, right? Like, that's the thing I don't like about it. And people can disagree with it, right? I'm pretty sure, like, I know guys that are referred to as master such and such. I have no problem with those guys at all, but I don't believe in it. Like, I would never ask somebody to do that because that's just not what I believe. Now, when people take that thing on, like we used to call Master George, right? George Claymore. That was just a tradition. Like, once you got up to this certain rank, you were considered a master. And I get it. You have masters, grandmasters, whatever people want to call it.
There's all this tradition in those martial arts too.
But like,
jiu-jitsu is more relaxed.
Dude, we live in America.
Yeah.
Like,
master especially is not a good.
Dude, I just don't like. I don't understand how we could still like call people that. Like, it's like a grown man, right? Like, think about it. Like, you're calling another grown man your master. It's like, yeah, it's just weird. So I just don't buy into it. That's why I've never picked up on the sensei, professor, whatever. People call coach, whatever. People want to call coach. All right, I get it. But I'm good with just being called by my name. And I just don't like the way that it can create some of these really, really weird scenarios that end up not being too good when people like have people call them by that label. So yeah, I'm just never like that. I never did like it for that reason. But as far as what is a jiu-jitsu black belt, I think you got to be a solid grappler. You know, you got to be able to, somebody that goes and wins competitions as a black belt, I don't think that they are necessarily, it doesn't mean that they're going to be what I would consider a black belt to be. You might be able to go roll with black belts, but that's not going to make you a black belt. I think it should be somebody that has stability in their own life to a degree. They live with a certain amount of happiness. They can give guidance in certain directions because they have some life experience in whatever it is that they're going to be able to do, right? Like, how good is a black, well, I guess this could be a question. How good would a black belt be if the guy is the most badass dude, but he ends up in prison for something that's just so grotesque that you can't even imagine how you would have ever taken any advice from an individual like that. I'm not talking about some dude that, lost his mind because he, got in a wreck and seen his kid bleed out and die in the back seat, and he goes grab the dude that hit him and just beats the dude to a living pulp. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody that just does something so foul. Like there's a dude named Cameron Earl, right? Cameron Earl was one of the top dudes in the grappling world in the 90s. And he's got wins over some really, really high level competitors. And he is in prison now because apparently he was raping women. It's like, but he was a black belt. Like, was he? So like, I don't think that's what makes a black belt. I think he has all the ability of a very good competitive guy, but I don't think he's somebody we should try to gain advice from, So maybe a black belt is a person that has a certain level of ability as a martial artist in whatever it is that they're teaching, but can also provide some guidance for newer people in that realm, right? So like, it's somebody that's got some stability in their life that they can be trusted to shoot people in the right direction. You don't have to worry about them being on some kind of crazy thing like that, Yeah, just a good person in the community that knows how to grapple, I guess.
I have a side question. So how many black belts have you given out?
Me?
Yeah. Or how many do you consider? I guess it's not simple of a question.
2. Jonah and yourself, I would consider. Waffle did Jonas, but Jonah primarily trained, like I taught Jonah more than anybody else, so you could say that. And you?
So how much thought did you, like, that? I feel like that's a big deal, giving a black belt to another person. So like, how much thought did you have to put into that?
For y'all two?
Yeah, like your first or second one, yeah. Like,
I mean,
I guess once it gets to a certain point, you know what you're looking for and all, but.
Well, I mean, y'all for sure are examples of what I just tried to explain, right? Like, y'all are dedicated in the gym. Y'all train consistently. So like on the mat stuff, I feel like you show up and you train. You're going to get better. You're going to improve. And at some point, it's like, well, why isn't he getting his black belt yet? And when I start thinking about that, that's when it's like probably about a year before that person gets it. But yeah, I'm not worried about like exactly, the person's got to know this move and this move and this move. But it's like, no, man, he's on the mat. He's training. He can roll with other guys at that level, whether it's like you can train and you can keep yourself safe for the most parts when you're rolling, right? Like, so you can go roll with a world-class black belt and you can keep yourself safe rolling with that absolute monster if he plays by the rules and y'all play by the rules. Like, to me, that's good enough. Like, and you can present some problems that person's going to have to deal with. Like, to me, that's you're there. You're playing the game at that level versus the guy that doesn't know anything that you got to worry about them getting hurt because they don't know when to tap or they don't know. And that's another thing too, man. Like if you're a black belt and you don't know how to tap and you don't know when you should, that's a problem. Like, that's a big problem. And so I question whether or not the guy's a black belt based on the way some of them tap. Like, for me, like, I've rolled with guys for sure that are of that rank and you're like, yeah, he should be tapping right now. And then they don't. It's like, all right, that's tells me all I need to know. Like, it's like you got to respect a role enough as a black belt, or you got to understand how to roll like a black belt, which I think boils down to like, nah, you're not going to get pissed off. You're not going to get aggravated. You're not gonna be butthurt if you get submitted or whatever it is. But you know how to handle that scenario. You're not going to, come after with all the fire in your eyes and everything because you're just angry that you got caught by somebody or whatever it is. But you can handle that with the same level of energy that you had before it. Like, to me, that means just as much as being able to tap somebody. So you guys know how to do that, and y'all are effective enough. Like you don't have to be some world champion black belt, but people can respect your ability. And I think by that time, it's like, they're good enough to be a black belt. And then it's just making sure that you try. Well, for me, it was a big deal to try to make sure I gave it. Like, I never want anybody to feel like it's a gimme, because that's going to devalue it in the person's mind. Like, you want them to know that what they did was worth it. So, like, if somebody trains for 2 years and you give them a black belt, they know it's BS, right? Like, they know that you, whatever, right? So I think as long as we are sticking to that idea where the person knows that they put the time in, I think that's a huge component. And to go along with the other stuff, like, if I got to worry about somebody coming unhinged, maybe it's not time to promote them to that. It's part of the reason why, like, even my son, right? Like, Ty's 18, and I can tell you right now, he's not getting his black belt before he's 22. Like, IBJJF says you can do it at 19. He's still a blue belt, because I want him to make sure that he is committing enough of himself before he gets promoted anymore. And as a black belt, I don't want to have to worry about him going out to a bar and getting drunk and getting into some kind of crazy altercation. Like, I want to know at least he had a year to find out if he's going to be that individual or if he's going to be able to leave. So, like, I don't want to have to worry about that stuff with him. And I think when you know that about somebody's personality, then okay, they're ready to be a black belt. Like, I don't worry about Jonah going out and getting into some stupid thing. I don't worry about that with you, right? I don't worry about that with Shane.
I wish somebody would step up to Jonah.
Like,
it's a lot to it.
So there is some stuff to think about, but it's making sure that you have the right individual to award it to for what you think it is. And I think you have to have the on the mat ability and the personality to represent what you believe martial arts should be. Like, to me, that's a big deal, right? Like I'm not worried about a good jiu-jitsu guy, right? To me, that's like, I want us to have good martial artists that get there by training jiu-jitsu. And I believe that you guys are. And that's why I promoted y'all to that. I say I promoted y'all, but that's why y'all got that promotion. So yeah, I think everybody needs to take that into consideration. It's I don't know, it is a tough decision because you don't want to shortchange somebody,
Yeah. All right, good stuff. So Shane, you're on the cusp of your black belt. What is it? What do you think it's going to mean to you when you get there? You've been a brown belt for over a year.
It's going to mean a lot. It's going to mean, I guess it gets to mean a different thing for everyone. And I think that's what's cool about it, because you don't really get to teach anyone what it means. You can explain what it meant for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to mean the same things for the guys you give it to, which is pretty powerful. Like anything in life, the more you put into something, the more the rewards mean, whatever the rewards are. So if you train, 7 days a week for a tournament, it's probably going to feel better to win than if you trained three days a week. And if you're promoted to black belt, it's probably going to mean a lot more if you've been doing it for 20 years than if you were doing it for 7 years and you won a world championship, because you're really fast and you're really strong. Sure, it's going to mean a lot to that guy, but he doesn't get to understand the deeper meaning or the deeper feeling that the other guy gets to feel, and there's no way to explain it. It's just the only way to feel it is for it to happen to you. And I think what also plays a big part is who you're getting from and the crew that you're surrounded with, So I think our gym it's the place I would want to get that credential from, that means a lot. Once you have respect for some guys and you think they have respect for you, it all makes a lot more sense. It all feels different. All feels better. For me, what I've been thinking about a lot lately is I've been thinking about the idea of, black belt skill level, but across all walks of life, across all industries, across all hobbies, sports, or whatever. I really like that. Like you go to a doctor's office and there is a 1-year tech, and then there's a doctor, a guy that's been a doctor for 30 years, and just listen to the way they talk to the patient. And when you hear the doctor, you go, that he's been doing this for so long. Like his communication skills are just, they're black belt. Like look how good he can make this patient feel. Whereas this tech is just raising anxiety because they sound like they're grilling you for questions, and then you're kind of panicky and you're stressed, and then the doctor comes in and he can make everything
like
at ease. Everything's normal, everything's okay, just by the communication skills he has, that the confidence and the effortlessness, and that's everywhere. No matter where you go, I look for those guys, and I try to think about, all right, what are they doing? What is the skill behind what are they doing? And really, how good are they at that?
Yeah.
We need to bring more belt systems to other industries.
Sure.
We've talked about doing belt systems for our butchers. We'll do apron colors for a long time. So maybe it's time to implement.
No, it's real. And I think if you use martial arts and you use the ideas that, we've come accustomed to, and you do apply it to all the other things you're doing, and you pursue, I remember Scotty saying this a long time ago, don't get tunnel vision on becoming a black belt. Like, you don't want to be a black belt. You want to do black belt things.
Oh, that's
so
good.
That resonated with me, and that makes total sense. Like, it doesn't matter if, like you said, if a guy comes in and Scotty wants to give him a black belt in 3 years, he can do it, right?
Yeah.
But can that guy do black belt things with his black belt? And that's up for interpretation. It's up for what you think black belt things are. So Scotty says he thinks black belt things is, being a good man, like setting an example out in town, and, taking care of your shit in your life. For other gyms, maybe not so much. Maybe they don't really care about what you do outside the gym. If I'm the gym owner and I'm a black belt and you can tap me, you're a black belt.
Yeah.
And that's probably running rampant in our country, I would assume, right now more than ever. And so I think why I have a strong connection to the way Scotty sees things is I do see it sort of like this place. Like, I see it. I know he likes the old school mentality and the art of it and the specialness of it, just as we do with our things that, our calf cuts and the processes in which we do things. And to me, that means a lot, to another guy who just didn't have the same experiences and the same conversations. It might not, and that's fine, but I would like to, and I think we should, like, we owe it to the next generation to, like, hey, it doesn't have to just be this. It doesn't have to just be coming to class 3 nights a week. Like, It can also be this. It can also be this. It can also be this. It can also help your relationship. It can also, with your spouse, your kids, your employees, whatever it is, you can use these concepts, and you have to realize, like, you have to look at every aspect of your life and say, man, what belt am I in this? Finance, health, your diet. Everyone should be able to say, once they've trained for a few years, they should be able to say, man, what is my skill level with dieting? Am I a black belt? If not, who do I know that's a black belt in dieting? Let me go ask that guy some questions. That's how I've learned to look at things, and that absolutely came from jiu-jitsu.
The other cool thing about not just jiu-jitsu, but all of these things that we do and learn more about is like the bleed over into other often unexpected like aspects. So, for example, getting good at jiu-jitsu doesn't just make you better at grappling another person, right? It teaches you how to deal with pressure and tough situations. And a lot of that bleeds over into, into work and whatever else.
Yep.
So it's more, the more you put in, the more you get out.
Yeah. You see, and that's something that I can tell you for sure gets missed off a lot. Like I had a guy, black belt, tell me one day, he's like, I can't stand some of these jiu-jitsu guys. And I'm assuming he was talking about me. He said, I can't stand some of these jiu-jitsu guys that think just because they got a black belt that they know things about things. Like, or they know things about everything or whatever. And I'm like, thinking in my head, that's interesting for a black belt to think that way. It's like, to me, that's so far off of the way that he should be thinking about it. It's like, no, it doesn't mean you know everything about everything. But I think what it should be able to tell people and teach them is like, whatever it took you to get to that level in training, like to get that level of recognition from whoever it is that you're training with or under or whatever it might be, whatever they seen that got you there, if you take that same formula and just apply it to everything else that you do, you're going to get better at everything else too. It's like, so it doesn't mean you're a pro at finance because you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. But I think if you take the same approach to your finances or whatever it is you're doing, you're going to get better at it. It's just knowing how to develop or create a process for improvement. And jiu-jitsu can very much be maybe a metaphor for that.
It's not just a metaphor, Scotty, and thank you for that beautiful segue. So you dropped out of high school, didn't get any college learning, but you figured out how to run a very successful martial arts school, and you figured out how to do marketing, how to build a website, how to keep and retain clients, how to teach kids, how to talk to parents, how to sell yourself and your product, all on your own. And I'm assuming it's because you're a black belt, but maybe you have a better answer.
I don't know.
How did that go, dude? You started a school from nothing in a new town.
So,
and you didn't just make it work. Like, you don't have to have another job.
No. So part of it was listening to Jonah. If I'd have listened to Jonah, I'd have started it way sooner. So I don't know if that was a good decision on my part or a bad decision, but the reason why I didn't start it as a purple belt, honestly, I think what Jonah was trying to do was get me into Thibodaux so that he didn't have to drop to Homa. I think that's what Jonah was trying to do.
And I would have started back training sooner.
So, but I was a purple belt and I knew that I couldn't promote people to certain ranks until I got a black belt. So I didn't want to have to hold anybody back because of my rank. And I also knew that I needed more time to figure out how to develop a curriculum and all that stuff, right? So it's probably about 5 years of figuring that out before I actually opened. And so listening to Jonah is an enormous part of why the gym actually survived. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about the gym making it is that Johnny Perez's wife, Anna, I think Anna might have been the one that got me set up with the little space inside of the vow. I think she put in a good word for me. And that's something that I even forget about every once in a while, that they played a role in that. So I'm pretty sure she was a big reason as far as that happening. So like I had good people that I met from teaching their kids or them that helped get this whole thing started. I think without that, all of that might have took a lot longer to get going. So, I think I was lucky enough to have those individuals. But dude, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I didn't have a clue. I just showed up and did it. And I made sure that if there was a class, I was going to show up and I was going to teach. And so the things that I learned out of necessity was just because I had to. Like, I had to show up and I had to open and I had to have a class. And I knew if I did that and just got everybody training, if I kept doing that, stayed consistent, then that's all it took for me to get the black belt was show up and train. So then I just did the same thing, but tried to do it as a teacher. And I also learned a lot of stuff teaching while I was teaching at Waffles too. Because you got to remember, I was teaching a lot of pretty much almost all the classes there for a pretty long period of time. So I got a lot of trial and error, made a lot of mistakes teaching kids, trying to play with the kids too much and kids ended up with bloody noses because we're having big dog piles, and like I'm rolling with like 10 kids, and kids are kicking each other in the head.
Hell yeah.
You know, like
Bring it back.
So
Oh yeah.
bring it back. So like
Thunderdome.
that still happens now, but it's not me anymore. Trep and Jordan sometimes get dog piled by the kids.
Yes, they do.
But the kids love it, you know. But too much of it is not good because kids just get hurt and they get rambunctious and they start not necessarily respecting the instructors the way they should. But, you know, I made a lot of mistakes like that I was able to learn from before opening. But like the intention was always to do better. And I think that's why I've learned how to do some of the stuff. You know, do I know how to build a website? Kind of, sort of, I can get by, but it's like I'd have to relearn it every time I try. And that only happened because I got messed over online by a guy. I wish I remember his name. Can't remember his name, but you know, he told me he was going to build a site and got paid for it and halfway finished it.
Shit.
So I was left with trying to figure out, okay, what did he?
Guess I should have just learned it to start with.
Right. So I took it as a very expensive lesson on, hey, just figure out how to do it just in case somebody ever does that again, you know, or you don't have to ask. Right. So I pushed myself to learn how to do that. As far as marketing goes, man, I still don't know how to do that. You know, I just know that if you put something on social media, sometimes it works. I never wanted to sell anything to anybody. And I was told pretty early on, hey, you're selling stuff. You need to get good at selling stuff. And I remember thinking my whole sales pitch was going to be like, well, like I hate going to a shoe department and go and pick out shoes and the guy's trying to sell me a pair of shoes. It's like, no, I want people to just want to come train the same as I go buy me a pair of shoes. It's like, if I know I need shoes, I go somewhere, I try on shoes, and I buy the one I like. I wanted people to be able to walk in the gym and do the same thing. Like, yeah, go here, go there, go wherever you want. But if you want to train, pick the one you like. You know, I didn't want to have some kind of big old sales pitch as far as why you need to train with us versus the people down the road, or try to have this spreadsheet, you know, basically set up for, you know, how do you take a call? Well, you ask this question, you do this question, you do this question. I never wanted it to be that way, you know, because the way I looked at it is like, if I get on the phone with somebody, I don't need to tell them much if they're not going to walk through the door. And that's supposed to maybe be the point of having a call sheet, is to get them to come into the door. But it's like, I'm not going to be any different in person than I am on the phone. So, you know, they'll sign up, and if they didn't like me on the phone, they're probably not going to like me in person. So why make it seem like something it's not? So it was just more trying to just show up and be the individual that I try to be every day, and let it do what it's going to do. Not necessarily worry too much about making the money of it. Like, I never really cared about that. It just kind of worked its way to where that's how I make a living now. And I think I probably put in just as many hours a day now as I used to when I was working at Gulf Island. You know, it's just, I'm not aggravated every morning when I wake up.
So I'll give Scotty a little sales pitch. He is, of course, really good at jiu-jitsu, and the adult classes are a lot of fun. So if you're thinking about joining, do it. But if you have kids, you shouldn't think about it. You should just bring them to class, because Scotty is a phenomenal with the kids. My kids go, and I help teach sometimes, and it's something really cool even to just watch him work with them, and the way that they listen to him way better than their parents is really awesome to see. Plus, they're learning how to defend themselves and getting a good workout in. And the other thing is, since Scotty is a friend and we talk a lot, he's constantly working on his curriculum, adding, taking off. He doesn't stop jiu-jitsu.
No.
So,
no, I think,
so take that.
Look, man, we've got a lot of good people that are involved now, right? So like, what's crazy to me is I didn't realize it until the other day. I think it might have been Joey. Joey's like, man, you got a lot of business owners that come over here. And I stopped and thought about it. I'm like, yeah, he's actually right. Like, we got a lot of people that train with us that actually either own a business or, you know, have something that they do on the side for themselves. And it dawned on me, I'm like, crap, like that's true, you know, and those individuals are actually taking a lot of, like, some of the guys in particular, like Jeremy, right? Jeremy's got his own business. Jeremy finds time to come help with the kids' classes, which I find is awesome, right? Like, does the same thing. And so all of these people that actually are entrepreneurs themselves, for whatever reason, they see the value in helping the kids, which makes everything that happens at the gym way easier for me. Like, it helps out so much. So I can't say that, like you say, Scotty. It's like, nah, like, enough individuals have gotten involved to kind of help the gym get to where it is. And so I can't say that that's definitely not all me, Just having extra sets of eyes changes the way that the kids in the room act, like knowing there's other adults around changes the way they act, like Jordan being there on a regular basis to help with the kids. He's there almost every single day, Monday through Friday. Just him being there, the kids knowing he's around, just having the adult there, like they're going to behave differently, and all that makes a difference. So that kind of goes back to saying, like, the parents are involved a lot more here that I've noticed. And that's not to say anything about people in Homa. I think it's just different for whatever reason, but they really are, like, they involve themselves far more, It's interesting. And that all plays a role with the kids, like Shane, you jump in every once in a while with the kids too. He comes in the back and gets dressed and then he's on the mat with his belt. And just having those parents do that, it's huge, man. And it shows how much they actually care about the kids, and I think it's awesome. Like, that's the most important asset we have is kids, our youth. Like, I thought about this a long time ago. Even when I first opened the gym, I said I wanted to do something that was going to be really, really good. And I also knew that the kids are who takes care of you later. So, like, if I can have a martial arts facility that helps kids develop and turns them into really successful individuals, like, those successful individuals later on in life, who are they going to become? And what are they going to do? And if you show up as a 60-year-old and you need a hip replacement or whatever, right? Like, I would much rather the kid that I trained when he was a teenager be the one working on me than some person that I've never met before in my life. Because, like, you'll know who that kid is. You'll know who they are. They're going to know who you are, and they're going to actually, you have played a role in their life where they're going to say, no, I want to make sure he's taken care of. And, like, who's to say, like, what are kids going to become? Like, I don't know who all the kids are going to become, but they're going to be somebody. And whoever they are, you just hope that they become valuable people in the future for, the old people, and that they pass that down on the kids as well. I think that's a big important thing that I really do take, like, a lot of care in, is with the kids like that, because, yeah, I mean, we're going to need them,
Man, it's pretty cool to think about is, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, there's going to be a group of 40-year-olds around Thibodaux, Homa, wherever else in the world, and they're all going to have that one thing that they did. They're all going to have that thing that, even if it was for, from 10 to 15 or whatever, 10 to 20, and they're all going to have that thing. They're all going to be able to have the stories of training that next generation and the things they learned. And, man, if they don't attribute, some of their success and their, whatever you want to call it, manlyhood, to what happened in that gym, I'd be surprised. I'd be really, really, really surprised.
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing that already. And this is something that I know that we have now for sure. What's been interesting to see is that we've had a group of kids now that have gotten to an age that started early and they've graduated high school. And so this is something that I've been waiting for, for sure for the past 13 years, even before the next generation was open. So this year we had 3 kids that graduated that started training very early. So Ty, Thomas, and Paul, right? So Ty, Thomas, and Paul all started, by age 10. Ty started when he was 5. I think Thomas started at 5. And then Paul started when he was, like, I think Paul was about 10 or 11, but they've stayed consistent, you know, some more than others. Like Thomas has been hit or miss, but he still comes in the gym. He still trains here and there. Ty's been very consistent, mostly because he didn't have a choice. And then Paul has been consistent without having to be told, like, hey, go train, right? It's something that kind of kept him interested. And to see how those young men handle themselves next to their peers, I find it really, really interesting. You know, like, it's just, they have a different thing about them that a lot of kids their age don't. And I think it is all from training. You know, it's from, you know, from Ty being on the mat when he's 14, talking trash and getting his butt kicked and knowing that he got his butt kicked, and then realizing that, yeah, he's probably going to do it again and he's going to get his butt kicked again. But it got to the point where he doesn't care. And it develops a certain amount of respect with the older guys that most kids that age aren't going to get, because they're not willing to put themselves in that and deal with it, you know. Same thing with Paul. You know, Paul's tough, man. And, you know, he gets I bet you he gets a lot more respect in the gym than maybe he did even from other kids in high school. You know, so the kids that he went to high school with probably don't respect him the same as the guys that are in their 30s that train with him day in and day out. You know, and shame on the kids in high school for not getting that. But it's just the respect level is different, I think, with guys that, or young men like them that have come up around other men. They typically don't have teenagers mixing in with like grown adults that early for whatever reasons. Like, you just don't want to be around teenagers, you know. But in training, like, it has to happen at some point. And so I think they pick up some of those little bits of knowledge that they hear from guys just talking or training or whatever, you know. And then something that's really cool to see is when you have a kid that's 15, 16 years old and they got a guy that walks in that's 30 something and they can smoke that guy. And then you watch him not do it.
That is amazing.
That's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. No other place in the world will that happen.
Yeah, and they'll roll with him and give him a tough time or whatever, and then give him a 5, give him a hug after, and then, like, it's like they don't have to prove that they can. And so that's a certain level of on the mat maturity, you know, that they realize, like, they know they can and they don't. And, you know, when they do know that, it means that they realize that in other things as well. So it's easier for them not to feel like they got to prove that they're good at something, because they're already good enough at something that they don't have to prove it anymore. So I think it makes it easier for them to learn certain things later on in life, you know. Now, I think certain individuals might take a little longer to figure that out, even if they do train, you know. But I think you got to be good at something before you can be okay with being bad at something. And I think that's what they have that a lot of kids their age maybe don't. And I think it changes the way that they see respect. You know, it's a lot easier to admit that you suck at doing X, Y, and Z if you know you're really good at something, because you know you can be good at something, versus individuals that aren't really good at anything that have to prove that they're trying to be or whatever, you know. And I think they realize that early, you know. You know, it was funny, like, you know, Ty did that little match over the weekend, and my aunt, she said, well, how old is the guys that he was competing against? It's like, I mean, they're in their 30s, you know, and he's 18. She's like, how? It's like, I mean, you know, like, he got in there, they did the thing, and afterwards they're in the back just chatting and hanging out like dudes. Mm-hmm. And just from seeing them, if you didn't know age and you just heard them talking to one another, you'd never know there was that big of a difference. Like, like one was graduating high school and the other one was, you know, like 5. You would never know that age gap was there.
That age gap is something interesting to maybe just mention too. So there's not like a lot of places you do that, right? Like in sports, in high school and stuff, you know, you're always around your peer group, and of course the coaches are older, but they're separate. They're apart, aloof. And so, like, Shane and I got that just from working at the market a lot as kids. You know, the workers were older and they were mentors for us, and that's a really cool dynamic that at some point you kind of have to. You don't want your first experience of that to be after high school, whenever you get a job for the first time. And so Jiu-jitsu is another cool place that can happen. Like when I started training, I was the only kid in a room full of, 30-year-old cops, firefighters, military guys. All those guys back then were very tough. And so it's cool to be in the room as a young adult to see how you adult. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that I've, when you ask, like, having Ty work at the market, and I said I just wanted him to be around good people. It's like, when I was his age, I was never good enough at anything to be okay with being bad at anything. And that's kind of why I say that, right? So, like, when I was working in the oil field, it's like anybody told me anything negative. Now, granted, they could have had a much better choice of words. When you're working in the oil field, it's a lot of vulgarity that everybody throws at one another. But you felt like everybody just crapping on you. At least I did, because I didn't know how to do this, or this, right? Because they wouldn't take the time to teach you. It's just you would either figure it out, or they would bust your balls and, say certain things until you tried to figure it out. And so that creates a lot of conflict, when you don't have one thing that you can do really, really well, and you're just not good at anything. And those boys know, like, they know that they'll be good. And you mentioning being around those older guys, like, it gives you that same opportunity when you were younger to be able to do a lot of that same stuff. So at least you knew how to be around a group of men by yourself, earlier than most, I would say. Because, like, I'm sure your dad wasn't sitting through classes with you, day in and day out, and, walking you by your hand, getting you to class. So it's something you took upon yourself to put yourself in that arena. And, there's a lot of benefits from that, man. And I think that's part of the reason why you're able to handle this place like you do. It definitely does something different when that's the case, and I'm sure it's the same thing, like, with the Marine Corps, right? Like, you happen to be in a group of men where you knew, like, these guys have been to war, and whether or not they're just a couple of years older than you or 30 years older than you, like, it's like knowing, all right, I need to hear what that guy has to say, and then listen to it and really take it into consideration that they're coming from a place that they have experience, and you can bypass a whole lot of mistakes by listening to what that individual is talking about. It's difficult to know how to spot that or see it if you don't have examples of it. And you get examples by being around experienced men, not just, 30-year-old dudes, like men that have some experience. And yeah, that definitely changes the way a young man or woman shapes their reality as they get older,
I think it's important that people see it as, for their kids looking forward, as another form of education, schooling. Like, I don't see it as much of a sport or an extracurricular or a hobby like I used to. Now I see it as it's a life skill. And it's just like, I think I shared it with you the other day, little write-up on, comparing it to swimming lessons. Like, everyone's got their kids 5 years old, they know it's important for the kid to learn how to swim. It's something they all go through. But they look at martial arts as an optional thing, and maybe there's other things in place, other sports, other maybe parenting styles to fill in those gaps that jiu-jitsu would or a martial art would, but not for most people. For most people, they're just letting their kid, make their own choices way too early. Like, you don't let your kid decide if they're going to go to school or not.
No.
Why? Because you think education is important. You're going to let them decide if their life is important or their humility is important. Like, what if you want them to have respect when they're 20, if you want them to work hard, and take control of their own success. I want all of those things for my kid, and I know my kid's not smart enough to decide that on her own just yet. So I make the decision for her, and I say, those are important things. Here's where you're going to learn it. Just same thing I do with school. You're going to school. Here's where you're going to go. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and the reason why you have that is because you got 30 something years on this planet, and your daughter's got what, 6? You know, like she can't understand what 5+ times of her life is supposed to look like. You know, and that happens a lot. Is we end up, well, you know, little Johnny doesn't want to do this, so we'd rather him make his own choices. It's like, I get it, you don't want to upset your kid, but it's way easier to deal with a 5 or a 6-year-old that's upset than it is a 30-year-old that's upset. You know, like, because none of those problems go away. Like, eventually they got to do stuff they don't want to do. Like, just make sure you get them to do the right things that they don't want to do. You know, it's like, hey, eat good food. Like, you're either going to pay for that now, or you're going to have an 8-year-old that weighs 200 pounds. Like, an 8-year-old's not supposed to weigh that, you know, and it happens. And I'm not saying anything bad about the kids, but it's those things that when you look at it, it's like, it's a bunch of small decisions that add up to those issues, you know. And now you say an 8-year-old that's 200 pounds. Well, what's his heart going to look like when he's 30? You know, that thing's been working real hard for 22 years at that point. And, you know, you could either not let them have the sugary foods that they want when they're a child because they get the chemical reactions and the addiction to sugar or whatever else it might be, you know. And like, hopefully you don't lose your kid early in life because of those bad choices, you know. And I don't think we think about that enough, you know. Like, we're worried about the emotional state now versus what it's going to look like in 20 years, you know, and make those good decisions now so that you can have a better life and see your kid get happy, you know, and not have to worry about him, you know. Like, look, I don't worry about Ty when he leaves the house. Naomi still does, but like, that's a mom, right? Like, if Ty's out, I know if I text him or I call him, he's going to answer and he's going to be okay. Like, I'm not worried about him going, you know, do, like I said, not some stupid things. He's going to do some dumb stuff, but nothing that's probably going to get him killed or hooked on drugs. So I generally just think he's going to be okay. You know, like, if he's pulled over on the side of the road by a cop, he probably deserves to get pulled over, but he's not going to run from the police. You know, he's not going to run from cops and get himself, you know, at gunpoint eventually. Like, it's a bad decision, you know? So knowing those things, it's like, try to make good habits that your kids make good decisions, that you're not worried about them when they leave the house, you know, because that worry will drive you crazy and that'll make you age real fast too, you know. And I think just small decisions day in and day out are what make or break those scenarios. And yeah, making your kid do things they don't want to do is part of it. Like, otherwise they would just play video games all day.
Yeah.
And eat crappy food. You end up with a mess of chips around a desk and a computer screen in front of them with a controller in their hand, and they never get up. Like, they would never get up.
I like what Shane said too about the life skills thing. You know, as kid, I have kids that are in elementary school and stuff, and you hear so much these days about bullying, and I think a lot of that comes from a lack of confidence in kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no better confidence than the confidence jiu-jitsu gives you. So, number one life skill.
Yeah.
I know you have the I wills, you have the kids. So before every class, they line up. You ask the whole class who knows the I wills. Every one of them raises their hand, and then you select somehow. You make a selection somehow on not who you think knows it. I've been watching you do it, and you're strategic on it. And I watch you call out kids that are, you know, you're pushing them, like, you know, they're uncomfortable, and you're doing all this stuff very strategically and behind the scenes that even the parents watching, they don't understand what's happening.
No. But
it's very different than what you see happening on a ball field. You know, it's way deeper than that, and you're tailoring your leadership styles and your coaching and your instruction based on the individual kid and what you know they need next and what you know they don't need. Like, I heard you, you know, speaking about one of the kids, you know, with this kid, you don't need to tell him good job after everything he does, even if it's awesome, because you know that he's got very involved parents and he hears praise from his parents on a daily basis. Yeah. So you make the decision consciously that for that kid, your role doesn't need to be that. And you actually actively remove yourself from that role. Like, yeah, I'm sure time to time you give him a good job, but part of this kid's lesson he's learning in his place is that you don't always get a good job. Like,
No.
learn to do something awesome, try your best, and no one's gonna say nothing. And you need to be fine with it, right?
Yeah, and you need to do it anyway.
I thought that was very profound, and I don't know where you learned this stuff, but you developed it along the way. But so back to the I wills, what are they? How'd you come up with that, and what are they?
So I don't remember exactly what had me come up with it. I just remember thinking like, okay, I needed to have something that would reinforce belief in their self. So I started writing stuff down like, okay, what do kids need to be able to do, right? And so they're in an order, right? So it's, I will work hard, right? Like kids just need to know how to work hard, right? I think that's, if they just do that and nothing else, they'll at least be able to provide themselves with some sort of decency as they get older, right? You take a kid that's not ever going to be academically smart, or maybe they just not high on the IQ scale. If they just show up to work every single day, like they'll keep a job, right? Whether or not they do right or wrong with their money, but if they're just willing to work hard, they could spend every dollar they make, but they're willing to work hard to make more money. They'll probably be okay, right? So that was the first one. And then it's like, okay, I will work hard. Well, what else do they need to do if they work hard? Well, they need to focus. They need to focus while they work hard, right? And so I will work hard. I will focus. I will learn. That's the next one. So then it started morphing into like the whole class setting. Like you show up, you work hard, you focus, and you're going to learn. And then during that process, you're going to become mentally tough and then improve every day. So I started, when I was writing it, it's like, okay, I will work hard. I will focus. I will learn. I will become mentally tough. I'll improve every day. And I kept saying it over and over again. I'm like, okay, I think that's something they can remember. And I think it's going to reinforce their belief in themselves that they can accomplish something if they believe that for sure in their head. And so getting them to say it over and over again, I just wanted to reinforce it every single time they come to the gym. Like I want them to be able to say it. And that's why they all say it after the other kid. It's not just one kid getting up there and saying it. So the reason why I pick certain kids on certain days, it's like, well, I want to see who's confident enough to actually raise their hand. Now, sometimes the kids that raise their hand are just raising their hand because they want to raise their hand. And I know they don't know it. And so it's like, oh, yeah, you make straight A's in school.
Are you talking about one of my kids?
Negative. No, but sometimes, or it was at one point. But like her in general, right? Like I wouldn't want her to not get it right too many times because I would still want her to raise her hand. But like, okay, so like the kid that gets praised at home all the time, that raises his hand and I know he doesn't know it, I'm definitely going to pick that kid sometimes.
You're allowing him to fail.
And then when he fails, I'm going to say, oh, you didn't really know it, did you? Well, why'd you raise your hand? Oh, it's embarrassing? Oh, yeah, it should be embarrassing because you don't know everything. Just because you hear good job at home doesn't mean you know everything about everything. Like that'll get them in trouble later on in life. Like imagine the kid that like shows up to the market that's 19, 20 years old that you're trying to teach him something like, oh, I know how to do that. Like, and that's your response.
Yeah, we got that.
To everything, right? Like you're like, okay, but still let me show you anyway, because even if you do know, like just go through this, like see this first and then go and, do what you're going to do maybe. Right. But you immediately know, like if they have that attitude, it's like, oh, crap, like what do I have to work with now? Do I need to break through all of that before I can actually get them to understand what we're trying to do? So like if the kid learns that at 8 or 7 or 9, like they're going to benefit way better than if they learn it at 25. So like, yeah, sure, I'm going to embarrass them and I'm going to make them upset. And I'm not going to leave them like that forever. And here and there, I'm going to take that kid and I'm going to tell them something good, but I'm probably not going to tell them good all the time until they start actually like showing that behavior on a regular basis. Like they're starting to get it. And some of the hardest ones to get through like that are the kids that get used to getting all the awards at school. They get told they're smart all the time. Like it's awesome for the kid to hear some of that, but maybe they don't get enough negativity to offset all the positive stuff, that they just think everything's great all the time. And like a lot of times that ends up being the kids that'll try to correct the adults, when they shouldn't, or it comes off as disrespectful as the way they talk to people. So I think that plays a big role. And then take the other side of it, where you have a kid that's not confident. Like that kid that's not confident, I'm probably only going to call that kid when they have the balls to raise their hand to get up there. And then if they don't get it, I'm probably not going to just send them back feeling like they couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm probably going to take that kid, and when they can't like remember which one, I'll give them a hint to see if they can remember it. And then if it's somebody that I know, like, no, he does not have the confidence, but he did have the confidence to get up there, like I'm going to give him the answer and then let him say it. And then 2 or 3 classes later, I might call that same kid up, and then they might get them all right and they might not. But I'll start getting them to speak even louder, to say it louder, so they could like develop a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you do that for 2 or 3 months, 4 months. And all of a sudden it's like the kid's got so much more confidence because now he knows he can do that. And then if they learn that at 4 or 5, it totally changes the way the kid's going to approach a whole bunch of stuff in daily life, And like that has an immense level of value, like far beyond getting an A on a test, like
For sure.
like that alone, that confidence developed at 4, that real confidence. And then also knowing what it was like in that short amount of time for that kid to be not confident, because that's the other thing with kids too, is like they might or might not remember what it was like when they weren't confident. But if they can know the difference in that amount of time and they can kind of still hold on to that, like they know they can do things. And, some kids, if they're just goofy, like you call them up, if they get it right or wrong, you kind of pick on them a little bit about it, they're going to laugh and they're going to like shake it off anyway, So like those kids, you want them to do good, but they'll probably be okay. But yeah, each kid's got to be dealt with differently. That's why like all the parenting books and all that get wrote now, I don't know if look, I didn't go to school, but it's one of those deals where I don't know if you could write a book that suits all kids. It's just reinforcing behaviors that you like, I think is important. I remember hearing Jordan Peterson talk about this. He's like, why would you let your kids ever do anything you don't like? Like if you're letting them do things that you don't like let them do it because you don't like it. And if it's enough stuff, you're not going to like your kid. So like thinking about that, like when I heard him say that, I'm like, okay, I don't need to know anything else. But if a kid's doing something I don't like, I just try not to let him do it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not smart enough to think about it the way that guy thinks about it, but I can figure that out. So yeah, man, kids.
Life skills, man.
Yeah.
It's the next generation.
Yeah. And hopefully we end up with some that are doing that, soon, and that's another big deal. Eventually, like with the gym, I want to be able to have it set up, hopefully one day, hopefully. Now, this is a far ways off, but I think we could probably do it within the next 5 to 10 years. Being able to say like, look, if your kid trains from this time to this time, there could be an opportunity for your kid to, if they do these things over this time frame, there could be an opportunity for your kid to own their own facility and have the gym be able to help make that like a reality, right? Mm-hmm. And hopefully be able to have kids set up to where, yeah, they started when they were 5 and they kept training until they was 18 and they graduated high school. So those 13 years of experience that they have of doing this thing, like, if you put them in certain roles over that certain period of time and they actually stick to it like a job when they're in school, being able to set them up so when they go to college or graduate college, they can take over their own business that's there. And then no longer is it like a thing where parents are like, I don't know if I want to spend the money to put the kid into this. It's like, okay, you could either think about it as spending the money, or you can just think about it as a, 20-year investment where, the $30,000 that you would spend over that 20-year time frame, your kid's going to have a business versus spending that $30,000 to get them college debt. You know, like I don't know how to make that make sense yet, but I think it could very well be a an equivalent of a doctrine in martial arts by the age of like 22. I think it could become that, and I want to be able to see it do that. And it's just figuring it out. I think I have it figured out, but it would take the individuals that can see it, you know. And I think that's why it's important to have these like Ty, Paul, Thomas, like that age group, be able to start taking over some of the classes and at least have an example set of it to where the parents could see it. Like, oh no, that's how he started, and he's teaching the classes now. You know, like Ty right now.
Tell you what,
is teaching class.
If parents, you know, if parents my age would watch Ty teach a group of 40 kids, I think they would be blown away at how that 18-year-old can command that room. It's impressive.
Yeah,
like he's very good. He's very good. He is deep. You watch him play the little games with the kids, and the same things you're doing, he can do. He's an 18-year-old. He's understanding some of that stuff, you know, calling out specific kids for specific reasons and not calling out other kids for, you know, there's college football coaches that can't do that, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, he's been seeing it since he's 5.
Yeah.
And so like that goes back to that whole, you know, the influence and the you know, just being around that in the room where they're going to pick up on some of those habits just from being in the room. And, you know, I think that having those boys start to set the example of it is, you know, potentially the start of that, you know, and look, I think he's still a ways away from being able to have a school, but I think, you know, if he gets his head set to like, no, I'm going to do that, and he makes it his sole focus, I think he can be there in another 3 years, 4 years, you know. Which is right around that time frame that I would hope that boys would be ready and girls would be ready to shoot for it. You know, I think he's got one factor that he's got to make sure of. It's probably the same thing that got me shot in the right direction as far as with myself. So that's still yet to be determined. But I think it might be there. So yeah, I mean, we'll see in a little while when I go there, and we're gonna see how the kids are doing. Because
this is a big step.
Yeah,
so explain what's happening right this second.
So right at this second, so I had to give my phone to the guys earlier so they can plug it up. And the reason why is because my wife was texting me. She's like, "Hey, you gonna make it back in time to teach the kids class?" I'm like, "I hope so." I hope so. And you know, I said, "Well, can you get Ty to bring you out to the gym?" I said, Ty might have to teach. And right now it is 4:31. Shoot. And that's our first class of the day today. And it's a 4 and 5 year old group, which he's taught plenty times, but normally I'm there.
Right. So this is a big step.
Yeah. So for him, it's like, no, you got to step up now.
Yeah. Right? And you think we didn't know that. That's what's interesting.
No. No, I know exactly that y'all know my schedule. But, you know,
big step.
Yeah. I think he's going to be fine. It's just him knowing that I'm not going to be there, you know? And so, you know, I've been prepping for this anyway. Yeah, like that's part of the reason why I have everything wrote out on a curriculum now is because like it needs to get to a point where I can say the curriculum is wrote to a point where almost anybody that's been around for a while can look at it and say, okay, I do this with the clock. This is round 1, 2, 3. And if you just go by that, guys can figure it out. Because, you know, the reality is like the gym needs to outlast me. And it's not like I have a death wish or anything, but, you know, realistically, like you need to have procedures wrote out that, you know, if you want something to stick out and last, you want to invest in something that's you believe is truly important, then you need to make it so that it can work. And, you know, how does it work if you're not there? You know, does it fall apart if you're not there? Or can it last even after you're not around, you know? And so putting together the curriculum like that is hopefully it's going to work out good enough to where you can look at it and say, okay, I can make enough sense of this. I've been through thousands of classes and I should know how to be able to do this, you know? So we'll see in a little bit. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So those 4 and 5-year-olds, about the 6 to 10 of them he's gonna have, they're gonna give him a little bit of something today.
That 4 and 5-year-old class is rough.
I haven't seen it many times.
It's the worst, dude.
I come in at the tail end, and I'm usually just smiling. It's entertaining for sure. It's funny how they're just a whole different human, man.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny how just that 1 or 2 years right there makes such a huge difference. Because the next age class, it's a whole different animal.
And sugar too, man. The way sugar makes a difference.
Bro.
Some
You
days,
can tell which ones had sugar before.
some
class.
days it's phenomenal.
Dude, it's like I've seen so many different things on the mat,
Snacks.
dude.
Oh, yeah,
What did
falling
you
out of
have
people's
fall
geese.
out of the kids' gi?
A bunch of stuff,
Peanut butter jelly?
something like that. Less jelly.
Just a PB and sandwich.
Some Cheez-Its, some Skittles.
Something that starts with a P. That's happened a time.
Oh man, okay.
I've had, dude, one of the funniest ones is one of the guys in town. He's brings this kid, and the kid, for whatever reason, he had something in his pocket, right? So I still don't understand how kids do it. They'll put their gi pants on over their pants.
I hate
So
that.
All of them. They all are wearing their school uniform under their gi.
They got 3 layers of clothes on,
It's incredible.
and they just train like that. It's like, oh, okay. Well, this little dude, he has something fall out of his pocket, and like I didn't see him do it, but Naomi seen him do it, and so he's got something under his foot, and he's doing jumping jacks, but he's only moving one foot, right? And he's going through the whole motion. Boy, he's got his arms swinging, and he's got that one foot moving. And I look at him, and I'm like, "Hey, why are you not doing your jumping jacks right?" And he just doesn't really say anything. It's like, okay. So I walk over, I start looking at him, and I'm like, "Hey, move your foot." And he moves his foot, and he had a whole like Hot Wheels that he brought with him in his pocket on the mat, and it fell out of his pocket. And he's doing jumping jacks, trying to hide that stinking toy car.
I'd have kicked it so far.
Dude, it's like, it's one of those things that's so funny. Like I try my hardest not to laugh at him, because it's like, oh no, he knew. But dude, he was trying to hide it the best he could. I've seen toy cars. I've seen any type of animal cracker or Cheez-It or goldfish.
Why do you got so much food in their pockets?
They hungry, man.
Who's walking around with food in their pockets?
Welch's fruit snacks. Dude, I've been thrown up on.
Good.
Had kids pee on the mat with other things. You know, some kids, dude. What's funny, sometimes kids, man, like I've had 2 kids pee on the mat, right? For 2 totally different reasons. And this is the funniest part.
How many
The
reasons?
only
are
reason
there
should
to
be that, like, you couldn't hold it, right?
Oh no. No. So this is when I started realizing, like, oh man, like, okay, these kids, like you have some influence over the kids, but you really need to like watch it. And so one kid was just terrified to ask to go to the bathroom. Like, did not want to have to ask, because she was scared she was going to get in trouble. It's like, I don't know why they would think they're going to get in trouble for asking to go to the bathroom, right? But they're scared, right? So it's like, okay. So instead of asking, she just did the thing. And what made it worse is like, are you peeing? Like, just go to the bathroom. So she runs, and then she slips and busts her butt on the concrete, which made it worse. She was even more embarrassed. And it's like, okay, well, that's one instance. So you have a kid not wanting to ask because they're scared to go, like, ask, right? So they don't have the confidence to say, hey, I need to go pee, right? They just hadn't built that confidence.
Nothing wrong with that, because I've seen grown men do it in boot camp.
Yeah, well,
Afraid to ask.
that's even better.
But what happens when they do ask?
They shouldn't have asked. They should have just missed.
Hey, but what happens if they pee on themselves?
You should have.
Is it worse?
They don't need to do anything.
So what would be worse?
It's peer pressure from them.
What would be the worst? Dealing with the peers or dealing with the other guys? What's worse? Like, you're in a barracks where you're the dude that pissed on himself in formation.
Man,
Versus
there's no
saying,
way out.
You know,
There's really just no way out. Might as well just join the Air Force at that point.
And look, I had one other girl. She knew she had to pee, but she was not going to ask because she was not going to do anything that was going to make her miss her stripe.
Oh man,
That
dude,
breaks my heart.
hey, just ready,
So dude,
ready to get it.
so she did the thing that was like, no, it's going to cost me a stripe. I will piss on myself. Like, so
Man.
there's multiple reasons.
She made the right choice, though.
Oh, she definitely got a stripe after. I can tell you that.
Striped up.
She,
Earned that one.
yeah. But no, it's interesting, man. Like you don't realize like what kids are thinking or whatever. So trying to figure that out is difficult.
Kids can be influenced, and just hope my kids are influenced in the right direction.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the whole black belt thing, right? Like, is it a good influence or a bad influence? And if this is what I can say, yeah, this might be a good way of getting back around to that whole question. Is like, I couldn't give a black belt to somebody that I wouldn't want my kid learning from, because that might be the people that are teaching my grandkids or my great grandkids.
That's deep.
Mm-hmm.
So like, why would you give somebody that type of authority if you wouldn't trust them with your loved ones? So yeah, that after
That's
thinking
good.
about it enough, that's probably my answer. That's a long way to find that answer.
Yeah,
Plus, they need to know something about jiu-jitsu.
man. Speaking of grandkids,
Don't look at me like that.
speaking of grandkids, let's just play this. Pretend that you have a grandson or a granddaughter one day, and they're listening to this. Out of this whole conversation, the martial arts, the jiu-jitsu, the leadership, the business, what's something they should go back and listen to?
What do you mean as far as go back and listen to?
Well, where at in our conversation do you think is the most important information?
Oof. I mean, by my calculations, you're trying to get me to remember about 2.5 hours worth of things that were said.
Just make up something new then.
I would say, yeah, follow the I wills and then apply it to something that you like, something that you enjoy, and then keep doing that day in and day out. I think if they follow that type of path, it's going to shoot them in the right direction for success. And I wouldn't have kids say it every day if I didn't think it was true. You know, so I think whether they're 5, 20, 25, 30, whatever, like if they just apply those things to themselves day in and day out, they're going to find something they like and they're going to find some sort of happiness.
And that roadmap's there for them.
Yeah. And look, man, my answer might change in another 10 years, but I think it shoots everybody in the right direction, I believe, because, that's kind of, I think it just sets a good framework. I think it kind of sets a good framework for success. And I think success is, you can't be successful unless you have a certain level of happiness in your life. You could be a billionaire and be unsuccessful if you're, drowning yourself in pills day in and day out and you don't have anybody that wants to be around you. You don't know what love is. Like, that's not success. So all of that is tied to happiness. And yeah, I would want them to pursue happiness, because if they're doing that, then at least they're putting something good in the world, right? So I would hope that they do that. And then tune in 10 years from now, maybe we do another one.
So I love the I wills, and they kind of remind me of like a vision or a mission statement for for a business. And it's there's a reason that people do that, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Another thing I've been tossing around with the kids, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not. I have no reason not to. I just want to make sure it's the right thing to do. And like I would actually love to hear what you guys think about it. But I've been very much debating on having them say the pledge before every class too, and see what does that do. Like, I don't even know if they say it in schools that much anymore. I think Ty told me at Thibodaux High they still did it every morning. But is that something that should be there? Or is it just one of those things where it's like the I wills are good enough, saying the pledge may or may not be needed? but I don't think it would hurt.
Man, I think it's one of those things that being a business owner, it's a luxury that you've earned. You get to make the decision, And if someone doesn't like it, and that's why they choose to go to a school that doesn't say the pledge, then happy on them.
Yeah, but that's also the thing too.
There, they'd say the pledge.
Yeah. Well, look, hey, we're at that point now. That might be a thing,
Yeah.
But I also think that's a way to separate the people. You get the right people, right? And I think getting to the point where it's like, no, I don't think I have to worry about the gym surviving anymore. I think it's going to be okay. But I also want to make sure that it's something that, you guys know how I try to do certain things. And when it comes to promotions, I was just having this talk yesterday with a couple guys after class. Like, I want to make sure that I rely on the important people that have played a role and been around since the beginning, think certain things are a good idea before any major things are changed. And I wouldn't think that y'all would think it's a bad idea, but I'm wondering if it could be one of those things that people are like, I don't know if you need to. You could do it, you could not really that big of a deal.
It means a lot to me. Like, I know you say it almost every time you give a belt out, for sure you say it, and you let everyone know that, hey, this isn't just what I think. To have a guy get his blue belt and he knows, hey, no, I asked Bo, I asked Jonah, all the guys, they all said, go ahead. Like, he's ready. That's an extra confidence thing, and kind of gets them, started on that next journey for them, Yeah. Definitely means a lot to hear. I don't know if it's needed, but I know for sure I would like to hear, I'd like to hear that the guys I look up to, they're also, it's like, no, I can feel confident because I don't feel, kind of delay that, that imposter syndrome,
Right.
No, it's true. That's actually one of the reasons that I was glad that Dave was there for my black belt promotion, was just because, like, you're my friend, and I know you know what a belt looks like, but I don't want to feel like it's, whatever I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, to have that son, with him, he's got a long reputation in that community. And like, I know I was okayed by him. So I had to go through 3 people pretty much, right? So it was Waffle first, then Waffle sent me to Brian, and then Waffle sent me to Dave. And I don't think anybody necessarily has to do all of those. I think it could be a bit overboard, but I understand why Waffle did it. Like, he was very unsure on whether or not to pull the trigger on that. But I do still think it's important for our guys to have exposure to those individuals. That may change in the future as far as how many of those guys, but, knowing that, like, I know what Dave's guys in general have felt like when I go there and train. And that's why I was confident as far as on the mat with Bo. Like, I've trained with enough of them, and I know how people feel, because a lot of times guys can think that, you're sitting there and you're rolling to try to beat them. Like, I'm rolling with a lot of guys over there, not necessarily, the time that I would go train wasn't necessarily to prove a point, like when I got sent there as a brown belt, it was to prove a point. So I wanted to make sure that I deserved the respect of him saying yes or no to that. And from what I understand, it was like Waffle was told, yes, give him his black belt, like 2 thumbs up, like, you need to do it. So after knowing that, and then training with some of the other guys that was in the room, I was like, okay, there's a difference between all of these guys. But it'd be foolish of me to think that, one guy that gave me a really hard time and the other guy that maybe wasn't the same as that one deserved it more than the other. It's like, no, he gave that to those guys for a certain reason. And that person has something that they can pass on that's worth other individuals listening to when they're on the mat. And I'll always remember that, because, even training with Waffle, right? Like, Waffle's 50, I think he's 52, 51 or 52 now. It's like, if I would take, 28-year-old me rolling with 52-year-old Waffle and think that there was nothing to gain from learning from that guy because of the way he may or may not be on the mat these days, It'd be so foolish of me. And when somebody gets to a certain point where they know, yes, they understand this and this and this, it's like, okay, good. You know, you're going to run into guys that you can wipe the floor with that are black belts when you're a purple belt, you know, and then you're going to run into other guys that you're going to get your black belt and you're going to be better than a lot of the other dudes you train with. And you're going to have dudes that just beat the snot out of you and there's nothing you can do about it. But that doesn't mean that you're not deserving of that rank. You know, it's just understanding that what is your niche and what are you good at? And then making sure that you stay to those strengths and try not to deviate too far from it because, you know, why would you? Why would you? You know, and that's one thing we're learning about in jiu-jitsu is like when you're training, you're playing around, you'll do stupid stuff. But if you need to have a hard roll, like you're going to do the stuff you're good at. You're not going to try to mess around with the things that you know could get you in trouble. So why would you try to shift any of that over to people to shoot them in the wrong direction? You know, and that's part of the reason why I try to stick to fundamentals now more than anything else and try not to teach too much of the stuff that I think is stupid. And if I do teach it, I'll tell people like, hey, look, you might see me do it, but it's still kind of dumb or it's flat out stupid, but it's fun. You know, like doing stupid stuff sometimes is fun, but it might not be what you want to do if somebody's trying to like, you know, punch you in the face. Like probably not going to want to pull, you know, X guard when somebody's trying to hit you with a bat, you know, but if that's all you know and it's all you know,
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah. Till they get hit in the face with a bat. Hey man, I'm telling you, I was training with Brendan Savan before he got his chance to go to the Ultimate Fighter. And I remember thinking, you know, I'm gonna try doing some of this guard stuff and see how it goes when he's got gloves on. And did X guard, and I'm like, let me see if I can sweep him. And after I got punched in the face multiple times, it's like, okay, I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm not going to get good enough at X guard to stop him from punching me in the face. It's a bad idea. So that's why I don't even teach it in curriculum anymore. I mean, I'll show it here and there if people ask about it specifically, but it's not something that I have in curriculum because it's kind of one of those things that you can get really good at it and it's fun, but it could cost you. So it's more like what they call a novelty item, you know, something you play with for sport. So you don't have to know X guard to get a black belt.
Good. Because I don't know it.
I was gonna ask. Well, all right, guys. Any closings? This was awesome.
Yeah,
this is really, really good. I'm sure we can go for 3 more hours.
I mean, look, I still got time, I guess.
Time's good.
Naomi says, so far so good. You'll be here for the second kid class? Question. It's like
just turn your phone off. That's my advice.
I'll just tell the phone today.
Yeah, but text it to her so she knows.
New phone, who does?
Oh man.
Well, all right, guys.
This is good.
Let's do it again, and we'll maybe just kind of narrow in on a topic next time, and maybe do like a Q&A or something. That would be cool. Yeah. Have guys from the gym or from wherever maybe submit some questions. There's plenty left to learn here, and plenty of ideas to dig into.
Well, dude, I'm sure like there'll be a lot of overlap and a lot of things with some of the guests you have planned. I'm looking forward to hearing from some of the more recent guys you've been exposed to that you'll have on. It's going to be really cool to hear those different perspectives. You know, like when you started talking earlier about, you know, you got this guy that's been doing this for so many years and you just started. Like, you've definitely created a solid network of individuals to hear things from. So it's going to be really, really cool to tune into some future episodes because you've got a wide range of things that you are interested in. And I don't know, Shane Thibodaux might be the next Joe Rogan individual that everybody's like, oh no, Joe Rogan plays pool, he does jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but like is he on the Miracles and Meat podcast? No, irrelevant.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of got some big plans, and I hope we can see them through. And definitely want to do this again with you and make different combos of individuals to get on and see what we can say.
Anytime.
All right. Appreciate y'all. Later. All right, that's it for this episode of the Miracles and Meat podcast. We ask that you share it with at least one person in your life that you think needs to hear it. If you got a little something from it, you got some little goose pimples, or it just gave you some feel goods, send it to someone else. Let them feel that too. And if you loved it, please leave us a 5-star review. That'll really help out. And if you only loved it like 4 stars worth of, please do not leave a review. Same thing with the 1 through 3. Not interested in any of those, only 5 stars. If you have any personal questions or comments about the episode, shoot them over to Bourgeois Meat Market on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll reach back out. And if you have any ideas for any cool future guests, please shoot those over too. We're always interested in hearing who else is out there and what kind of cool stories we might be able to bring into this place. See you next time. Thanks for listening.